Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the SMITE Challenger Circuit Playoffs. Aggro joined now by Mifflin as we're getting ready for the second European set. We got the Papis up against Snake Pit. And Miff, usually Europe has been a little bit dominated by belt slap, as North America has been dominated by basking in the boys. But the Papis versus the Snake Pit should be a little bit more competitive than what we just saw from the Picari Noobs.
It should be, but by that same note, the Papis have reached some highs that the rest of EU haven't. They're the only team in the league that's ever taken a set off of belt slap. They've got a ton of really historied players like Marcus, Cecchio, Warchi, Jaco, Mariano, or Marino, depending on how he feels on the given week. I mean, each one of these guys individually are very strong players, but as a team, I think they come together very well.
These guys have been playing together forever, it feels like, and they've been pretty successful. It's been a little bit up and down. They've had their moments where they've looked like they could compete at that SPL level. They've had moments where it looks like they are pretty far from that level. We'll see which version of the Papis we're going to get today, but riding along with their backline on these highlights so far, and I think that's a good place to start, because when this team is popping off, it's because Cecchio and Warchi get the space to operate, and then they end up capitalizing on that.
Yeah, they play a very smart backline generally, where they just kind of have the frontliners group up with themselves and then leave the mid and hunter to their own devices, let them peel for each other around these fire giant dances, and it looks pretty strong, especially considering the picks that we generally see come through for them. A lot of Scylla, occasionally you'll see some Nuwa come through as well, a lot of very independent mid laners, and I think it fits their playstyle very well.
On the other side, we have the Snake Pit, which is a team that's still looking to find their identity, I feel like, but a couple pretty big names in terms of the SCC European scene. Worst Turtle and Spudio jumping off the page to me. So Spudio in that long lane up against Warchi is going to be a matchup to watch.
It is. I mean, we can't also sleep on Worst Turtle in general, right? I think that's really the namesake of this team. He really is able to just pop off on these jungle picks, facilitate a high-pressure long lane if he needs to, or even rotates in a solo pretty often. I think he's one of the few junglers in this league that likes to go for the early game solo lane ganks. I think that you should definitely keep your eyes on the jungler.
Worst Turtle has been a name that's been in the SCC forever and has always been on that second, third seed team, just trying to get towards that top end. Feel like this is a good opportunity for him to have a big set. And junglers in general right now really running the map. But what else is new, Mifflin? I mean, that's what junglers have done forever. It's the most important role on the map.
Most important role, hardest role. We gotta not only search for our own farm and compete with the enemies because they could steal our camps, but also dummy mid laners like to walk into our backs and take them as well because they're smooth brain. Hey, you know what? They control the map because no one else is able to do it. Yeah. Junglers are really, really good.
Oh, thank
and
you.
you know
Tyler
what? I think
just
we
said
should keep
picks and
trying.
bans are ready. No, Miff. Listen, I would have loved to let you finish, man. Really, I love hearing about how difficult jungle is for you, but picks and bans are ready, man. It was out of my hands. I couldn't do anything. They were telling me we had to get to them. Like it wasn't me. You know, it was production. You can blame them. Papis in that first pick slot. Remember that we are playing on that bonus balance patch, not the patch that just went live on Tuesday. So gods like Ra that got buffs that we've seen a lot of, at least I've seen a lot of in ranked over these last few days. Do not expect them to be at that same power level. And that means Nemesis is still untouched. She's the only god who got nerfed in that patch that just went live on Tuesday. So Nemesis, I imagine, will be a pretty high point of contention here.
Yeah, Nemesis should be on everyone's mind, especially considering just how strong the counter matchups are and gods like Cthulhu or even La Amaterasu out of Soul Lane. And I think we should be seeing a lot of Cupid bans going through today because one of the most natural counters to him on the newest patch is going to be Artemis, who hasn't quite got that buff just yet. With Cupid getting banned out this early in the ban phase, it makes me think that Snake Pit are going to be looking for a ROM pick themselves or maybe even towards a Magical Hunter. How Papis choose to respond is yet to be seen.
Morrigan banned away by the Papis is pretty interesting to me. The god that, once you show the capability to play it, really does end up dictating a lot in picks and bans. So clearly they feel like Angry is a threat on this pick, and Persephone as well, even though they are in the first pick position. Again, a little bit telling to me on what the Papis are prioritizing. And if you're in first pick and you're banning Persephone, that tells me that you don't feel like you can play it that well, because that god is so strong. You should be snapping that up pretty much every time you can take it.
I agree completely. This Cthulhu getting hovered really early on. I'm not overly familiar with this scene, so I'm not sure whether or not they're going to prioritize this into the support role or into solo. It's a strong flex either way. But with Nemesis being left on the table at this point, if Snake Pit just take it for themselves, she's going to be able to instantly mitigate a lot of that damage mitigation that Cthulhu gets from his ultimate. It's going to be so much easier to just eliminate him in team fights. Normally when you see a Cthulhu get to that 20-minute stage of the game, he just wants to press 4 and then hold W into an entire enemy team. It doesn't work out nearly as well when you're just not tanky.
Interesting with the Kumbhakarna first pick here for Snake Pit in response to that Cthulhu. Nemesis still open, as you mentioned, but it will not be the Nem. It'll be the Rom that they take. Look, the Rom I get. Cupid banned. He's the best hunter available alongside Cupid. I'm cool with that. But Kumbhakarna is not a pick that we see prioritized at the SPL level a whole lot. Now, maybe in the European SCC that is a contested pick, but it feels to me like we don't really know what we're going to pick here, so let's just pick something pretty safe, and Kumba's the pick for them.
Yeah, I was expecting something along the lines of even a Hercules if you want to pick a support there, or the Nemesis just to counter out the Papis or something along those lines. But with Kumbhakarna coming through here, it's going to be a decent amount of peel. It's going to have very good lockdown. Epic Uppercut should set up very well for whatever mid laner they decide to take for themselves. But it's just interesting to see these picks coming through. Now, Poppy's going a little bit unorthodox as well. Normally, when you think of that next tier down, under the Cupid, under the Rom as well, you think Heimdall or something along those lines, but instead it's going to be the Hachiman, or even a Jingwei would have come to mind a little bit earlier on. Hachiman's going to bring a lot of similar value that Jingwei would have in that he's one of the safest hunters in the game. He's still got a little bit of boxing potential with the EI Jutsu stun. CC immunity and ultimate's going to be pretty helpful up against gods like Kali and Kumbhakarna. It seems like Poppy's strategy for the long lane is let's just farm it up and wait for late.
Hachi's one of those gods that you can never be that upset about picking, but you're also not like, yes, dude, they left open Hachiman. We got him. You know, we really manipulated these picks and bans in a way that we got Hachiman this time around. He's a hunter. Like, he just does the hunter stuff, and he can get ahead and be pretty oppressive, but when behind, I feel like he is one of the lower impact hunters that you could have. So I wonder what type of pressure the Poppies are going to draft for that support role. It's not going to be Khepri, and Nemesis is banned by the Snake Pit as neither team took her in their top 3. Think still a little bit surprised by how these have gone, with Nemesis making it all the way down to that second ban phase. And then no big mage ultimates banned away here by Poppies. Big follow-up off of that Kumbhakarna ult like you were asking for. A little bit more utility mages taken off the board in Merlin and Nuwa.
Yeah, very interesting ban phase in general. It seems like Snake Pit really do think this Cthulhu is going to be going into the solo lane with that Khepri ban coming through. So having Sun Wukong over there, we can run down that matchup a little bit. Sun Wukong's not going to die. Cthulhu likely also not going to die unless we see a gank come through from this Kali. It should be a wet noodle fight lane. Sun Wukong should very well come away with pressure once he gets that second or third item slot. Should be pretty easy for him to proxy waves and then rotate out. It's going to be up to the Poppy solo laner to try and keep up with those rotations. But you already highlighted it. This Merlin and Nuwa ban is a little bit interesting because neither one of those gods generally synergizes very well with Kumbhakarna. You'd expected something maybe like a Ra or even a Poseidon, just something with a huge AoE ultimate to follow up off of that huge CC coming through from your support. But instead they decided to ban out one of the best objective burn gods inside of Merlin and one of the best team fight gods inside of Nuwa. It should fit out pretty well, but when Hera's still available, now that's going to fit exactly what you need.
Yeah, Hera feels like a pretty strong pick here for the Snake Pit, and they are going to lock it in. The Awilix pick on the other side, though, for the Poppies, only one leap. You're looking at Kali as the one who's going to make herself vulnerable to that gravity surge, but Kuzenbo knockup can be potent enough. Do you like the Awilix pick here?
I love Awilix in general because I like to hail Feather Step as the level 6 execute because it's just so much damage. But into this matchup, yeah, you really only have Kuzenbo ultimate to set up for you, or even the Cthulhu knockup if you've got the nuttiest reaction times on the planet. It's going to be very hard for him to find value off of the Gravity Surge ultimate, but you could also just use it in general as a stim, maybe help out with some objectives, things like that. General matchup into Hera is pretty strong. Hera's going to want to drop Argus on her feet the second a jungler engages. If you time your Feather Step right, you're going to dodge a ton of that damage.
And the Polymorph pretty slow for Hera as well. I think we're going to be riding along with what the Poppy's jungler is doing in this game, because that Awilix pick does look like the determining factor to me. Miff, which draft do you like more overall? Who you got here in game one?
It's got to be Snake Pit, man. This draft they've come away with is incredibly strong. Just having this late game hyper carry inside of Kali, Hera should be able to peel for herself, and then you've got a very easy to line up team fight phase with Sun Wukong and Kumba. Looking good.
Papis versus the Snake Pit, the second European set. We'll throw it down to Dave Dolson Olsen for the cast.
That sure is me, Aggro. Thank you very much. Belt slap waiting with open arms in the semifinals for the winner of this one, Papis versus the Snake Pit. Alpha Jackal's with me, and of course Doug working the camera. And AJ, this is going to be an interesting one to watch. I think you said the Papis probably 75 to 25% favorites maybe in this one, usually the team that goes toe-to-toe with the Snake Pit. You look at these drafts that both squads have, are you still feeling that 75% favorite over the Papis?
Can I drop down to 50-50 at this point? You know, is there a redo? Is there an opt-out clause that I can go for?
I think so. So 50-50 I think is a fair enough split here in this one. Is it something that maybe the Papis drafted themselves or didn't draft versus maybe the Snake Pit? You think they're just bringing a much stronger composition to the table?
I think just the Snake Pit's draft is better throughout the early game, the mid game, and the late game. I just had a look at the comps. I think the Snake Pit is superior. It's okay, better at this point. This one, it's just better overall. Just straight up one way of saying it. The Papis still have the option of getting pressure over here on this duo side, thanks to the fact that they do have the Kuzumbo. And both teams here going for this strategy we've seen developed a bit in the SPL, which is saving your Hand of the Gods for the Alpha Harpy, so you hit level 2 on the first wave.
Right, there was some juggling going on with supports moving in for the Ghost Minion, hitting that level 2, those sorts of things, but usually has been around that Alpha Harpy more recently than not. Unfortunately, Poppy's just a little bit behind here on the wave, so they won't reach that level 2 mark right away. Snake Pit a chance for some early poke there, able to trade in a little bit of damage, but not much more on the back end of that. I think an interesting point, though, that the desk brought up was around this Awilix pick out of the jungle, and maybe just kind of a direct counter pick to the Kali, or maybe it's going to set up something here in the early game. Oh, Angry taken so low. It's going to walk his way beneath the tier 1 tower, but not far enough to stay alive. Now the worst turtle has to worry about surviving. He will be able to do so. But hey, right on cue, the Awilix swings first.
Okay, 60-40. I was joking. Okay. But no, that's sort of the plays that the Papis do. You just don't expect them to play that aggressively with gods that don't really synergize well together. Is you pick a Wheelix and you don't go, oh, Thoth's going to be so sick with this pick, I'm going to pick the Thoth right here. And they just walk up to your face and go, okay, we're going to kill you straight away. And Marcus continues that aggression as well here. Gets a nice ward out early on that right-hand side, looking to keep the pressure on this right-hand side to invade on the backhand, but there's Kali behind early.
Yeah, I guess that's always the threat as well of this Hera in the early game is, later on you get that massive shielding. We've even seen people build Bulwark on Hera just for extra survivability there in the back line. But early on, I mean, you got a polymorph, and if that's not hitting and you don't have your shield yet, which I don't think Angry did there, or if he did, it got melted down quickly. The threat very much alive. And now Alpha Jackal, Angry doesn't have beads out of that mid lane. So this Hera has got to play extra safe maybe for the next few minutes.
Does have to play that bit safer, but is still buoyed by the fact that not level 5 yet on Marcus, so still doesn't have access to that gravity surge. Just has to try and hope that he can worm his way out for the next minute and 10 seconds before Marcus does hit that level 5. Otherwise, I think Angry has got a massive target on his back for that first gank from Marcus.
I think the threat here as well, and you pointed it out earlier, is Worst Turtle scaling, getting better with time, Angry or needing to put Worst Turtle behind, rather, as a factor of this Kali building up, getting better with time. Angry, of course, is going to do much of the same on this Hera. Late game Hera drops Argus and one-shots people in the back line. So it's always a threat. You got to keep piling on the pressure early, and that's what this red buff invade is going to look to do. Oh, the ultimate from Marcus. Not triggered right away, so Worst Turtle able to leap out, stay alive there, but the red buff invade looks like it might be successful here. Rotation over from Dazer. So the red buff looks like it gets dropped there, but Snake Pit's still on the back foot.
Yeah, that's a really, really good invade there from the boys of the Papis. They almost managed to get themselves another kill, but Angry gets his transform off at the perfect time for Worstel to get away. Don't forget, Marcus elected to go for Blink rather than Beat as his first relic, so no way of getting out from that polymorph transformation to then cast that Gravity Surge.
Yeah, good point. The lockdown there from Angry, just enough to keep that kill from coming through, but still putting that pressure on and out forward. So as much as you can do to put this Kali behind early is definitely going to be important to look at. We have seen some pressure, though, Alpha Jackal, over here in the long lane up to this point. The Rom definitely strong here. Chekio getting dove now suddenly by Worst Turtle. The execute's going to be just wide. Oh, but he wants some more damage. He's going to walk himself forward, but unable to find the final shots. Angry escaped with his life, and Worst Turtle answers back after falling early on in this game. Both supports now are going to find their way to mid. But it's the 1-for-9 as Snake Pit strike back.
Hey, that was close. I respect the aggression in the play for Chekio. I think as any mid laner, you want to try and stamp your authority on your lane opponent. Just
of course.
Needed a tiny bit more time before his dash was up to then get away from Worst Turtle. I thought he was going to get away in any case. He certainly is putting out his energy onto that mid lane.
Yeah, the final judgment there just a little bit wide. It actually would have been likely a turnaround kill there had that one connected, but Angry able to sidestep things here. So now kind of the counter of what we were seeing early was Marcus putting out a good bit of pressure onto Worst Turtle now as Kali has picked herself up a kill. So the snowball potential has started to reach critical points. Not just yet, though, 5.5 minutes in, but Worst Turtle absolutely in a position where you can start to snowball things a bit out of control. Just prior to that, I was trying to bring up the Hunters before action started, and same thing's going to happen here. A Polymorph from range is going to slow down Marcus. As another red buff invade is being started up here. Draco Mariano walks his way in. Gravity Surge back onto Dazer. But the Kumbhakarna healthy enough to dash his way away. So more pressure being put out by the Papis on this red buff side, feeling comfortable with where their 3v3 is early.
Yeah, but they weren't able to take away the red buff successfully, so a good defense by the Snake Pit. And now they're the ones with the opportunity to put the aggressive markers on themselves. Speaking of aggression, he looked to try and kill Marcus, put him down to half health as he was looking for a tasty invade onto the purple buff. Draco Marino's not going to let them do that by themselves that easily, and that's what you kind of have to do. If you are still looking to try and put the pressure onto this left-hand side, don't let them get anything for free.
Purple buff, hopefully, is not going to go down for free if you're the Snake Pit. The knockdown from Dazer is there, but the purple buff locked down by Draco Marino. But Dazer, he stayed too long, the dash away, but the up and over from Marcus is there. That's going to trigger the passive here. Marcus ends up getting the kill in the mid lane. A bit of a dive as Worst Turtle looking towards Chekio. But the Thoth is able to back his way enough, safely enough. And the Papis grab themselves a kill and stay alive in the mid lane.
Yep, so 2 lanes going the way for the Papis right now. Solo lane, the only one that's really going in favor of the Snake Pit quite handily. I think Mifflin hit the nail on the head on the desk where Terum should have the pressure in this lane for the most part against the Cthulhu. So it's just maybe a bit more nursing over here for the Papis to make sure everything's going according to plan. Or maybe this is the plan. Just get the rest of the lanes as ahead as possible and don't really have to worry about this Wukong in the mid game.
Yeah, but is it time to hang up the Wukong is only good for running away from fights and staying alive? We saw massive damage and big, I'd argue, team fight carrying out of Wukong over this last weekend in the SPL. So, you know, you expect maybe the lane to be going the way it is right now. But I think Wukong has gotten to a point where he's a multifaceted... I'm not saying you said it, but there's definitely been conversations around it where it's a multifaceted threat pick now, I think, out of the solo lane.
I've always thought that Wukong's been a tremendous pick that's been criminally overlooked. So I am in that corner, and I will stay in that corner till I die. Which was kind of quick last time this conversation reared its head. But Terum, or Worst Turtle, sorry, is looking to just take his camp for himself. The fight breaks out, and Dazer is nearly toast already.
Yeah, he's got to dash his way away there. Draco Marino's going to pop the ultimate, but not enough damage. Marcus around at the side, though, could be a dive as everyone from the Papis rotates in. Workg drops the banner, drops the kill. Down goes Dazer. Now, it's Creed underneath that tier 1 tower, aggroing things up, but it's going to shift over. Double stun from Worst Turtle as he jumps into the back line, but it's a push right back through from Draco Marino. Somehow the Kali stays alive through that ultimate. Chekio limping away from the back of this fight as the TKO effectively get the kill there. Marcus was looking a little bit further for the kill, might not be able to find it here. Terrorem slams down the damage. Draco Marino attempting the peel there. Unable to find it. Looks like the tier 1 tower in mid will end up falling as well.
That's the plan for the Papis all along, was get that tower. That's why all 5 of them are there. You have to expect that if you're playing against the Papis, that they will 5-man rotate at the 9-minute mark, like no team ever does. It's just what the Papis do.
Yeah, I'm not sure Snake Pit are expecting everyone from the Papis to suddenly be there, but they were, and they had to answer back. There was a decent amount of counterpunch there, I'd argue, from the Snake Pit. Terrorem's able to get himself on the board, but another 1 kill for the Papis and that mid-tier 1 tower. So that opens up this map now a little bit extra, Alpha Jackal. 9.5 minutes in, no more mid-lane tier 1 tower to deal with.
I think that's probably more impactful than most other tier 1 towers in mid have ever been. The mid lane was sort of balanced on this knife edge. We see 1 kill go one way 1 minute, and then suddenly return kill in the next. But now Snake Pit have to regress a bit further. They have to play a bit more defensively because they don't have that safety net. This is, like you said, going to open the map up for the Papis a huge amount and allow them to invade onto red buffs a bit easier, maybe invade onto the back camps on the right-hand side a bit easier. But most importantly, gives them a better foothold on that Gold Fury.
Right, I mean, the red buffs were getting invaded anyway. Now it's just a little bit safer for the Papis to do so, and they are going to hover their way, as you point out, close to this Gold Fury. Maybe searching for a fight to lock down the objective easier on the back end of things. Worst Turtle being looked at, all 5 ultimates ready to go for either side. Chekio attempting to poke out some long-range damage there, unable to find much for his troubles, but you got to admire the Papis. They're going fishing here for maybe somebody from the Snake Pit just being a little bit too far overextended. But Snake Pit able to answer back confidently, and unfortunately the confident answer is just to back themselves up, but it's not going to stop the Papis from continuing to push this far ahead.
Yeah, they're still looking for the poke, put Daisy down to about half health. He doesn't have his...
Ow.
He doesn't have Blink, he went for the shell, so it's not the end of the world for him. He can still look to engage. The Solonids do make their rotations. Spudio's all down to half health as well on this left-hand side. So this is the opportunity for Papis to take this fight on the Gold Fury.
That's right, and you're hoping if you're the Snake Pit, you're able to answer back confidently. Unfortunately, Dazer being gravity surged back in is not the way to do it. Marcus gets the kill there. Down comes Argus to split out the front and the back line from this fight as the Wheelix has to disengage. Worst Turtle into the ultimate, and he's got the execute. Full heal now onto the Kali, but the ultimate's going to time out. There's plenty of damage on the backside, and Spudio, Creed, they've both got one. 2-for-2 trade as we stand so far now in this fight. Terrorem will drop down off the cloud. It's a 2-for-2 engagement. The Snake Pit, though, are going to have to be the ones to back themselves off. The pressure continuing to pour in on the left side of the map.
That was a very good fight. Well, it looked like a very good fight for the Papis. They didn't have the anti-heal online as of yet. And so just means worse. Turtle got himself a full heal from that kill onto Draco Marino. It was quite spectacular to see.
Yeah, if you're Snake Pit, you're thrilled to be seeing that. If you're the Papis, you're wondering how in the world you're supposed to deal with a Kali that had no health and then suddenly had everything. I mean, that's the moment maybe that really turns that fight around. The Papis were pretty much winning handily elsewhere if Worst Turtle wasn't able to find that execute. But he was. So the fight was brought right back towards even. And I think that one was extra important for the Snake Pit. There's this slow bleed that was starting to build up from the Papis. These individual picks here and there. Marcus really driving this game, affecting all of the kills. It was about 1,000 and some change gold differential. This Gold Fury is going to be so important for the Snake Pit to kind of stay relevant, I think, in this early to mid game.
I think it is as well. I think the longer it goes on, the better the chance the Snake Pit has of taking the game into their own hands or sneaking the game away from the Papis, depending on how it does go from here. But something to point out is Worst Turtle's builds. Usually we see Kali's opt for the kin size a bit later on, rather than rushing it as he's done as his second item. They should go for a couple of katanas first, especially the Hasten katana, just to stick to players. But a bit of a different build here. Maybe the Snake Pit's whole goal is to just bring down this Cthulhu as quickly as possible.
And kind of on the flip side, you're looking at jungle builds across the board as well. Marcus, Brawler's Beat Stick, so we mentioned anti-heal. Going to be very important for slowing down a lot of what the Snake Pit are building off of. But then early Hydras now for Marcus. This Wheelix is going to be doing a good bit of burst damage sort of right off the bat here. And Going to be important to do so if you're going to keep engaging on Dazer. I mean, the Kumbhakarna 0-3 up to this point. Tanky, but takes a little extra time to burn through as the game goes on here. Dazer first through the door, but Tarim right there to follow up. It's the Gold Fury that's now been started up. Tarim looking towards the backline, but has to use the Cloud. Up he goes as Creed is in the backline as well. And look at this Cthulhu controlling the back of the fight. That's a 3-man knockup. That opens the door for the Papis to maybe re-engage here. How consistent is to disengage? Well, it's not going to be very consistent when Marcus pulls Tarim back in as Warchi grabs the kill.
Yeah, that's one of the big, synergistic combos I was looking to see. The long-range knockup from Cthulhu into the pull from the Awilix, and it just works out perfectly for the Papis. Marcus gonna get ambushed at his own speed buff here, sees it just in time, but not in time enough. Jump under the tower, beats were good.
Nice
Looks like
sidestep.
West Turtle with a good ambush doesn't pick up the kill.
You are going to force Marcus back to base, though, likely. Yeah, won't go over to the speed buff, just in case Worst Turtle is still hanging around, so you've at least given yourself a chance to pull back just a little bit here. It's just been so difficult for the Snake Pit to find engagements, I think, that they're happy with. The Papis have really been the driving force, the ones kind of first in the fight. And you really look at what happened right there around the Gold Fury, I think, Alpha Jackal. Creed was controlling everything on the back. Tarim tried to find a dive, but unable to do so. The Sun Wukong had to leave almost immediately.
And that just, I think, comes down to the Snake Pit's choice of relics. We've got the Blink coming out from Tarim and Worst Turtle. You can't realistically have 3 Blinks as your first relic. You're just leaving yourself too, focused on the we must pick someone off style of play. You're not really protecting a backlane whatsoever with 3 people blinking away from them. So Dazer is then almost forced to go into the shell to begin with, but he's got their best form of engage with that Blink Epic Uppercut or even Blink Mez. So the Snake Pit find themselves really difficult to get any form of engagement going here with the fact that their best engager has to waddle his way into the fight rather than blink in like Draco Marino can do.
Dazer sure is trying, but the Papis sure are beating him down constantly. 0-3 still, so didn't die in that last engagement. A little bit of that is what we're looking for here. The root down. Now Draco Marino gets polymorphed around to the side, silenced out on the back end as well. But hey, one more gravity surge onto Dazer. Why not? It's going to be Creed rotating over from the solo lane. Marcus snags himself the 4th kill of the game, and Dazer falls for the 4th time.
I think his next item has to be a Magi's Blessing here. There is just no way he can continue with this just consistently getting pulled. He may even end up having to go Beads as his second relic, just so they don't pick on him consistently.
And they are going to keep doing it as long as they can. I think the Papis will. It's Pyromancer being looked at, nearly taken away by Tarim, but the Papis now are going to really build on this lead. The largest we've seen so far this game, right around that 3,500 to 4,000 gold mark. Draco Marino just kind of walks at Spudio here. He alone is half health. This ROM up to the sky is going to buy some time as Argus drops down. It's Angry rotating over from the mid lane, and Spudio grabs the kill. A little overextended, maybe. Or the Papis, as the Snake Pit are able to grab one.
I think that's one of the first times I think we've seen a bit of miscommunication there from the Papis. It was almost clear that they called that Angry was coming over to that side to try and help out on Spudio getting ganked, but they still just go for that kill anyway, and Warchi uses up his ult, uses up his Aegis, not going to be available for the next fight. But the next fight might take a bit too long to come for that to matter, considering both major objectives at this point are down. A Fire Giant could be potential, but that's just going to cause more headaches for the Papis, I feel, than it would give them benefit.
You start to look really at Angry, who did massive amounts of damage, I think, in that small previous engagement, has double flat pen early in this game between the Deso and the Magus. So as much attention was attempted to be paid towards this mid lane Alpha Jackal, Angry has largely not been held behind, even a 1-level lead here over Chekio. So now maybe the focus for the Papis has to be finding a way to deal with this Hera in these team fights.
Well, the way they've sort of dealt with the Hera is to begin with, get rid of all the peel that the Hera has, which has just been, unfortunately, Dazer, primarily, and Terrorum after that. And largely just ignore Hera as a whole, kill Argus as quickly as possible, because the second the Argus is slammed down and is dispersed from the fight, the Hera's impact becomes a lot less, well, impactful if you're inside a Snake Pit.
Sure.
It becomes a lot more manageable.
You have to play around that Argus. If Angry is able to do so, he'll be more successful, and vice versa. If the Papis are able to melt away a lot of the damage that Angry is looking to do, well, the fights become a little bit more linear for themselves, a little bit easier to maybe control here. Another fight being looked at between the Tier 1 and Tier 2 towers. Warji's just going to turn around, knock down the final bit of health there. All of the fighting happening on the left side of the map so far this game. Both solo laners have made their way over to this one as well. Creed is buying some time for the rest of his squad to mark down the Tier 2 tower. Blink right back forward from Terrorim here, but Warji just going to move his way away into the ultimate as Terrorim tries to chase. He finds the stun onto Marcus, but Creed has gone big here, and he's going to 3-man knock up the backline one more time. Spudio does get the kill onto this Cthulhu, but the kiting backward is buying some time now for the Papis. Draco Marino has 3 looking at him now to dash away from Marcus. The Snake Pit realize they found themselves a winning fight. They've got 2, maybe a little more if this dive continues.
Westurtle going to blink it onto the Tier 2 tower, gets this good stun off. Epic Uppercut comes out. Marcus picks up 1. Westurtle picks up 2. Spudio picks up the 3rd, and Papis have just disappeared.
I'm not sure there. I mean, you kind of recap what we saw, and it's, you know, a divide between the Tier 1 and the Tier 2 towers. And then everyone, or maybe 3 members of the Papis, I guess, kind of looked at that Tier 2 tower. They weren't able to get it. They kind of left Creed alone. But how about this call? The immediate rotation after locking down those final few kills over to the Fire Giant.
I think this has to be the call here from the Snake Pit. Well, Creed's teleported to the left-hand side, so he either believes that they're going for the Gold Fury, or the call is here to just give up this Fire Giant and look to try and bite them underneath the Tier 2s. I have a feeling that Creed could have contested here, especially given the time frame that was there. Dace's passive is now down for another 4 minutes, unfortunately.
And he needs them.
It does need every single one of those passives, and to see it go down for the next 4 minutes is going to be changing his tune about where he positions. But for the next 4 minutes as well, the Snake Pit do have access to a Fire Giant buff, and the Papis going to have to rethink their fights.
Right, if nothing else, Dazer was still able to lock down that FG buff, so still strong. And suddenly the script is entirely flipped here. We're talking about a Papis 4,000 gold lead, and them being the driving force around all of the rotations and the movement that's happening. And now it's the Snake Pit that are very comfortable, I think, in where they're at. Notably, Westurtle, 4-1-3, massive spike here for him. Primal Fury is going to get taken down with ease. And I think worth checking back in on what Westurtle's building here, the kin size, Hasten Katana, and then moving into a couple of bows later on in that build. Odysseus is first overall. So this Kali is going to be absolutely melting if able to free fire like she was a minute ago.
Yeah, just build up attack speed, and more attack speed, just to let that kin size do its work. Doesn't have any form of penetration available to him right now, so it's going to find it a bit more difficult to have that proc go to full effect on the tanks. But I think they've just moved past the point where they want to have it done on the tanks. They want to have a look at these squishies a bit more for Westurtle.
Wow, that one polymorph did about 1/5 of Creed's health and damage. Not to be surprised, it's a level 19 Hera. That's top in the game. 2 levels, 2.5 maybe, over Chekio, mid lane counterpart. I was a little worried about this Hera starting to swing. Flat pen early definitely did its work, and Chronos Pendant, so this fight, it would see if that cooldown makes an impact. It's kind of the dive and counter dive, but Creed, he can't even use the ultimate here. Immediately down goes this Cthulhu. The disengage from Marcus, from Warchi, absolutely there. And the Papis realizing that is not a winning engagement. We got to go beneath the Phoenix.
Don't often see teams defend against the Fire Giant on the Tier 2 tower. Obviously, Papis felt they were in a good position to make that defense. But Creed just popped. I don't think I've seen a solo lane Cthulhu die that quickly. He doesn't really have that much in the way of protections. He has got a good bit of health to his pool, but at this point you usually see a couple of protection items in each slot, i.e. a bit more physical, a bit more magical protections, rather than going for these pseudo-bruiser items into the Stone of Gaia.
Well, it's sort of tough. I mean, it feels like the Papis are doing most of their damage when they're able to backpedal and kind of kite back and deal damage to Snake Pit that are moving forward, but Creed kind of wants to do the opposite, and it seems like there's just so much kind of counter dive working for the Snake Pit. You get the polymorph, silent stuns in that composition as well, where Creed just wasn't able to do anything. So you have to really time, I think, your engagements here if you're the Papis. The Fire Giant buff still on all 5 members. You look at really what the Snake Pit was able to whittle away off the map. It's all of the towers in the long lane now missing. One in the mid lane ends up getting taken down. About 40 seconds left on that buff. So the big hairy question has to be, Alpha Jackal, is if the Papis should be in a position where they're confident enough to contest the next Fire Giant here in about a minute and a half.
I think they have every reason to try and go contest that Fire Giant. They are only 6,000 gold down, 24 minutes in. It's not the end of the world. It's fights that they have to take carefully and ones that they have to engage almost perfectly onto the correct target, but they're ones that they can take. The main thing that I've seen that's been a bit of an issue for them is it's been very easy for the Snake Pit to just bypass Creed and bypass Draco Marino in the last 2 fights and get onto Czechia and get onto Warchi in this backline. So just tightening up that defense and fighting more as a 5-man unit that we see them do so well and so often, that is what's going to bring them better luck in these team fights.
Yeah, they did just sort of ignore Creed. Well, they didn't ignore him. They just deleted him and then were able to walk forward in the 4v5.
Same thing.
Throughout the rest of the fight. Yeah, same idea, I suppose. The Papis still fighting around these tier 2 towers. We figured that was somewhat interesting. Nearly falls. A strong breeze will knock that one over. But now it's 30 seconds left till this next Fire Giant starts up. So it's going to be ward time and maybe go back and spend some gold here for the Snake Pit. And that's exactly what they're going to try to do here. I think on the counter end, though, you know, there's so much maybe counter dive that the Snake Pit have built for Creed. But the Papis now, again, I think the Worst Turtle has reached a point where he's very difficult to deal with. Now there's going to be an Argus dropping down into the front line of this fight. That's going to chase down Draco Marino. So early ultimate usage here from Angry. Terrorim has popped the ult. So a couple ultimates forced out early by the Papis right around this Fire Giant.
Yeah, and Angry's going to take this opportunity to go back to base real quick. Terrorim still standing around. This could be a potential Fire Giant start here from the Papis just to try and bait it in a fight 4 versus 5. And it looks like that's exactly been the plan. Dazer's sprung the trap and Creed's gone up into his ultimate.
Creed starting off this engagement. Dazer taken down by Warchi this time. The Papis have found a great opening kill, and the rest of Snake Pit slowly move their way away. You can tell the Papis not totally confident and fully re-engaging. Worst Turtle sensed out by Marcus this time around, and finally the Fire Giant is going to get started right back up. Snake Pit still lurking close by. Creed pouring down some damage into the backline as Spudio's going to get locked in there. It's a 2-man Fire Giant, but the rest of the fight now, maybe numbers advantage for the Snake Pit. Dive onto Jekio, goes Terrorim, but Worst Turtle's right there as well. Both actives used, but the fadeaway shot from Terrorim's there. Worst Turtle, he's been let off the leash, and Snake Pit are better off for it. Only one is down, and that's Dazer from before. Draco Marino picks up the kill onto Worst Turtle, but now it's a Kuzumbo against the world as Snake Pit win the fight.
I don't think Snake Pit are interested in killing Draco Marino. They just want this Fire Giant. They'll only have 4 members, but I don't think they care. It was a good start of the fight for the Papis, but once again, they just ignore Draco Marino. Well, they do care about the turtle. Angry's found him eventually. So they do care. They do just ignore Draco Marino and iCreed again and go, right, you two, I'm sorry, you don't exist anymore, but neither do your backline.
And right, and just in those moments where it's like, man, Worst Turtle, he hasn't been slowed down much this game, huh? He had that full heal earlier on, and that kind of tilted the direction of where this game went. I suppose that was always the threat. When you have a Kali, a Hera, or a Ram on the enemy team, there's always this threat of large-scale scaling for the Snake Pit. And now they've got themselves another Fire Giant buff, a couple minutes off of the enhanced variety here, but 2 Phoenixes open, both on opposite sides. There's the opportunity here for the Snake Pit to fully spread out the Papis on defense.
I think what they'll do, though, is they'll push up this mid lane tier 2 first, and then they'll probably have Worst Turtle just push one of the lanes down by himself. Most likely the mid lane, have the rest of them go towards this left-hand side, trying a 4-1 split, because Worst Turtle at this point can 1v1 anybody. He's got his Magi's Blessing online, his 6 slotted outside of his boots, being upgraded for a different item, maybe a Bloodforge. It is a perfect time to just let him off the leash.
It's been that way for a little while now, but to your point now, maybe more than ever, this Kali is absolutely going to be threatening effectively everyone now for the Papis. Creed has been doing his best to buy space, but The ignoring factor is absolutely there from the Snake Pit, and the dive has just been too consistent into that back line. Marcus has really slowed down here. I mean, still affecting 100% of the kills so far in this game, and maybe a factor of the rest of the Papis slowing down too. But you talk about relative jungle impact. Worst Turtle's been in the lead in that category for a few minutes here. I wonder how the Papis punch back. It's going to be Draco Marino, but he's kind of solo engaging here. He gets rooted down, taken down for half of his HP. That's going to leave Worst Turtle and knock down the mid lane, tier 2.
I thought we were going to push it down as a 5-man, but they decided to do that 4-1 split earlier than expected. We've already got some of the engagement with Draco Marino. Dazer does pick up the Blink as his second relic, and he is engaging there. Forces Chekio back, and Final Judgment hits nothing.
Sure doesn't this time, and that's a massive bit of damage utility that the Papis needed on this defensive side. I was wondering who's going to try to counter out Worst Turtle in the mid. Right now it's Marcus with a kind of back and forth rotation from Creed, but Worst Turtle rejoining the fight. That's usually the cue that the Snake Pit, they're trying to go here, and they sure are. Creed, silence down, taken down. Worst Turtle, opening kill in this engagement, but Marcus, he's able to answer back with one. Now it's suddenly the Papis who are the driving force in this engagement. Warchi has stayed alive throughout it all. 3 members of the Snake Pit left trying to retreat here. Chekio's gonna dash himself forward. Dazer has to pop some of that immunity here. Shell used just a few moments ago. Kumbhakarna's gonna dash his way away, but Chekio's still on the chase. And the Papis, for the moment, Alpha Jackal, have defended that left side Phoenix.
They defended their mid-Phoenix as well from any form of rotation from Worst Turtle, like getting the kill onto him. Terrorum doing his best to protect Dazer and Angry, who are running away with their tails between their legs. The tier 2 tower on this left-hand side could be the opening call here for the Papis as they look to try and get a counter push going themselves. But it may just end up being a few buff invades and a bit more of a reset here.
You know, Worst Turtle there was able to jump in and help out with some of that early damage, but maybe what we didn't see, or what we did see that we hadn't seen from the Papis up to that point, was the mitigation of that damage. It never really got that full heal, and finally the Kali ends up going down, and maybe a winning engagement there for the Papis. Always helps that you have the 6-man in your Phoenix. But the Papis needed every bit of advantage they had there to kind of stay in the game. And finally, we've reached a point where all else is effectively equal. For the last 15, 20 minutes of this game, Snake Pit have had at least a 1-level lead over effectively everyone on the Papis, but now we're right back towards even. Item-wise, we're starting to catch up as well. The Papis probably in the closest state they've been in recent memory. So that makes this Fire Giant fight, it's going to be enhanced. Ever so important.
I think right now it's going to have to go the way of Snake Pit, though. They still have that, slight bit of an item lead, as you were alluding to. They have the positional advantage as well, and it's very difficult to push into a team that's got this much zone control on their side, with Angry being on this Hera, you have Terram on the Sun Wukong, but most importantly, Dazer on this Kumbhakarna. He's gone past the awkward early stage of the game where he was picked off consistently by the members of the Papis. The second he's hit this level 12 mark, he's only died once thereafter.
Yep.
That was just on one of the last fights that they've had. And it's worked out really well for Snake Pit that they've got him to this point, and it's paying dividends for them.
I mean, Dazer was, what, 0-4-0, and now suddenly he's 0-5-7, so 0-1-7 over the stretch there, as you've pointed out, since he reached that level 12 mark. The Blink, absolutely helpful in him finding more consistent engagements. It's the Snake Pit, though, feeling confident enough to start up the Enhanced Fire Giant, maybe just seeing if the Papis are going to stick their head around the corner and sense what's going on. Creed playing a little bit further back here. Draco Marino's taking up frontlining duties, but Creed will join him there on the side nonetheless. Dazer moves forward, gets the Mez onto the back line, immediately Angry, drops down Argus, and Worst Turtle picks up the kill onto Creed. This Cthulhu has not been able to play the game for the last 20 minutes. Marcus being looked at by Terrorum now off to the side as 3 members of the Papis move themselves back away from this engagement. The chase is on. Marcus fast enough has the bubble if the CC to be absorbed, and the dash away is going to be enough this time. TKO, though, and that opens up the door to this Fire Giant.
The Cthulhu just doesn't exist in this game, and Marcus hasn't had that same impact. The solo side of this game for the Papis just haven't had the same impact we usually do see them have, as Orchie chased out from his mounted archery. Snake Pit going to start up the Fire Giant once more. And as you said before, it's like the enhanced Fire Giant is Terrorim, creating all the space possible.
He's just alone in the backline here. Pops the Thorns this time, turns around a good bit of damage. Plugs down some more on the backline as well. It's now Draco Marino who has to keep himself running away. Poppies have slowed down the Fire Giant. Snake Pit have fully peeled off. And again, they've done a good job of seemingly where the Poppies are doing the most of their damage when they are able to back themselves off and poke their way away as they kite backwards in this fight. And Snake Pit are no longer confident in starting up the enhanced Fire Giant, so job well done by the Poppies.
It's a real good defense from them, but I think that's just more the Snake Pit looking for the kills rather than the objective. It's always important to get rid of the ones that can potentially steal your Fire Giant. And
right.
On that side, it was going to be Chekio, so just try to get rid of that final judgment beforehand. I do agree with that call. But maybe just keeping a couple members on the Fire Giant, because you had that numbers advantage. You had the 3 versus 5, as Marcus was still making his way out from the base. Just try your luck a bit more. See if you can't just force him into even worse positions.
I wonder how Creed rounds out this build here. I mean, plenty tanky enough, has enough prots online to stay alive, but I couldn't tell you the last time, Alpha Jackal, I've seen a Cthulhu Ultimate be able to be triggered in any of these fights. It's almost like Creed needs to pop his ult around a wall and then walk in otherwise, because he has not been able to consistently get that ult off in the last few engagements. More of the same here. Dancing begins right around this Fire Giant. Everyone fully restocked. Some purchases were made back in base. Going to bring full items onto Chekio as well. Everyone on the Poppies, except for the Thorns for Draco Marino with their actives. No Aegis for Angry for the next 30 seconds. No Shell for Dazer either, so small advantages that may be able to get pushed. Fire Giant going to continue to get reset. Creed, I wonder how he's feeling in this one. Maybe he has to do some just walking in with that ultimate already engaged to force the Snake Pit back, but surprising, neither team engaging just yet. Maybe the Snake Pit now have found something to blink on in as Creed is going to get locked down. Down comes Argus as well. There's the ultimate. Keeps the Cthulhu alive this time around. But 4 members of the Snake Pit still looking at him. Warchi trying to plug down some damage onto Terram, who's now pushed back by Draco Marino. Enough damage has been done by the Poppies to force the Snake Pit onto the back foot. And look at Chekio swinging from the back line. Passive popped from Dazer. Snake Pit, they're on the retreat.
Oh, Marcus just unable to get that final basic attack onto Terram, who is going to get away. Actually putting out a load of damage with that polymorph. The fists nearly get the hit onto Marcus. But with the fact that it is a kill onto Dazer, a TKO onto Terram, Westel is just doing what he can to distract on this mid-Phoenix as the rest of the members find themselves on the Fire Giant. Angry, the only one around to try and defend this as of yet.
There's a big difference there. Creed is able to actually stay alive in that fight. Fire Giant slowed down. Angry, he's found enough damage. Caster's Curse totally from me there as Creed will end up falling, but later on in that engagement, Chekio down as well. This is the most cursed Fire Giant I've maybe ever seen, as the Poppies were so close to taking that one down, but the counter is there from Snake Pit to get rid of a couple of the most important members.
37 minutes in, and we still have no idea who's going to come out on top of this game. Usually there's one team that's getting their 3rd or 4th Fire Giant of the game. The Snake Pit have had 2 already, but they haven't felt as impactful as other Fire Giants at this stage of the games usually have, and then the other team's pretty much playing defense until they win one fight and walk up the mid lane and get the win. That people say they probably didn't deserve, but in the end we all know exactly that they do deserve the win if they do manage to come back from that sort of thing. Draco Marino blinking in early. Fire Giant's still alive, and thankfully he is alive as well.
Yeah, but it looks like Snake Pit are finally going to be able to take this one away. The death timer's just too long. Those 2 comeback kills for the Snake Pit finally break the mold here. The slowdown, no more. Snake Pit now 5 members with Enhanced Fire Giant, and Oni Fury, maybe somewhat helpful in slowing down the push that's inevitable now from the Snake Pit. It's going to end up being Mantle of Discord for Creed. I wondered which robe he would opt for there towards the end, and I guess it makes some sense if you're just going to constantly get melted down before you have a chance to do anything.
Yeah, I think right now the build from Creed is good. I still am a fan of Magi's Blessing. I still would say that something like that should be able to, be on his build because he's dying from the initial stun, and by the time Mantle goes off, it's probably a bit too late for him to go into his ultimate and then have the impact he would like to have. So avoiding that initial CC and allowing himself a bit more time to react and a bit more health to play around with could be the deciding factors how it swings into the Papis' favor.
Yeah, good point. And, the Mantle is going to stun down whoever's standing on top of you, but likely won't be Spudio, won't be Angry, the guys who are doing a lot of that damage there. So an interesting item choice we'll have to take mind of now if we're Creed here this time. Angry has stayed alive through basically whatever counter-engage the Papis have thrown out there, which, granted, hasn't been all of that much here recently. It's been the kite back that have won the Papis some engagements, but then an overstay around the enhanced Fire Giant gave that one over to the Snake Pit. So the largest chance maybe to end the game now for the Snake Pit as 4 members rotate themselves over to the left. But remember, Alpha Jackal, the last Phoenix defense worked well for the Papis.
It did. I think that was aided by the fact that Worst Turtle took a bit too long to get round from the side, from the mid-Phoenix into that fight, and they managed to deal with Terran a bit early before he got into that Somersault Cloud. So 2 factors which Snake Pit very easy discuss and change between then and now.
Here we go on the back line. Checchio, goodbye, my friend. Spudio snipes down the damage. The active's not enough to save your life. You're angry. Gets rid of Marcus as well. The damage so mitigated now from the Papis, but Warchi's still alive. He's able to back his way away. So a chance now on the defense, but it's going to have to be a miracle. Spudio gets the kill onto Creed finally. Draco Marino, Warchi, the last 2 left alive. The Snake Pit are going to rotate their way back in. They want the Titan, not concerned about the Phoenix just yet. No minions. Minions on the left-hand lane, pushing their way in. Draco Marino, silence down, epic uppercut. Oh, what a play into the back line onto Warchi, but the Aegis keeps him alive. Now you need this guy to go big from the fountain, but the Titan is melting down nonetheless. And it looks like Snake Pit are going to run away with game number 1.
Game number 1 in 40 minutes and 22 seconds. The Odysseus bow was popping off there for Warchi, just not enough damage at the very end of the game. And it was, I wouldn't say comfortable, I wouldn't say clean for either team, but it looked like that Snake Pit had control over the entire game from start to finish. Bar the first 5 minutes of red buff invades.
Right, there was continued pressure in the first 5 minutes and then effectively nothing else from the answer back from the Papis from that point on. So the Snake Pit, maybe the underdogs here. No, it was 50-50, granted, after the pick ban phase, and it definitely came to fruition there. And the Snake Pit are able to grab themselves game number 1. So a chance to move on and face Belt Slap in the semifinals in game number 2. But we're going to break down game number 1 right after this break.
Welcome back, everybody. Snake Pit take game number 1 in a pretty hard-fought victory, but Mifflin, they get the job done in about 40 minutes. It turns out, when you get to late game and you've got Rom, Hera, and Kali, things are probably going to go your way.
Look, you say hard fought, and you're right for the first 15 minutes. I would say everything after that was a victory lap for Snake Pit. It seems just like they had complete control of every single team fight. A lot of it off the back of Spudio and Angry just absolutely popping off in the backline, untouchable, it seemed like, while simultaneously finding damage on priority targets incredibly easily. Fire Giant dances, Gold Fury dances, anything that occurred post 20 minutes just goes Snake Pit's way easily.
Marcus had a great early game, though, Miff. I mean, 5-5 and 7 is his finishing scoreline, but he started off the game really, really well, was working well in conjunction with Draco Marino on a lot of those Watery Grave into Gravity Surge combinations, but ultimately it was not enough. Very, very low player damage from Dazer, worth noting. 4,000 in a 40-minute game, 1,000 damage, just 4,000, damage across the course of the game, but he didn't need to do any more, Miff, because Spudio 33K, Angry 30K, those backliners really popped off here.
Hey, and you know what? We got to give him a little bit of credit. The Kumakarna might not be dealing as much damage, but what he was bringing to the team fight was Peel. He was just mezzing anyone that tried to get into the back line. Epic Uppercut came through a couple of times, probably 3,000 of his total damage just to set up for a couple of those kills. We got to give a little bit of credit to the Kumakarna. He went down, sure, but he gets back up.
Fair enough. He was getting focused quite a bit. I will tell him that, especially in the early game. He was getting pulled off those Watery Graves an awful lot, but it ends up not mattering in the Snake Pit. Take game number 1. That Cthulhu for Creed, you mentioned the backline feeling pretty untouchable. there for the Snake Pit. Normally, Cthulhu is the premier backline diver that creates a lot of space. Was not able to do so in game number 1. We'll see if that changes picks and bans for game number 2, if the Papis want to try and prioritize something a little bit different still in that first pick position. I'm curious on this Persephone pick, Miff, first and foremost, because that's what they banned away last game in that front slot, and I wonder if they're going to do it again or if they're going to try and prioritize it for themselves.
If we see it get banned out again, I think you're 100% right on your read that they just aren't capable of playing that character. I mean, I can't play it either. I'm pretty sure you can't. Very hard pick, but when you're playing at the top level, when you're coming to these lands, you have to be able to play exactly what's meta. Persephone is, by and large, the best mid laner in the game right now. I think it's a huge detriment to not be able to play it.
I agree. It's the same way I feel about Yemoja. If your support can't play Yemoja, why not? You know, they should be practicing that pick day in and day out in order to try and get that working, because there's money on the line. Like you said, I'm a terrible Persephone player. Even though I'm mid-main, I'm not playing for money. I'm playing for MMR, which sometimes more important. Think about that a little bit. But overall, you got to have those gods in the god pool, man. You are hurting your team if you aren't competent on those gods at this point. And neither Persephone nor Yemoja banned so far. As I say that, the Papis decide to ban Yemoja, or the Persephone rather, and they've already banned that Cthulhu. So a lot of the premier picks, I'd say the Papis have banned 3 of the strongest gods in competitive Smite, and they had the first pick in this game, which is surprising.
It's a lot of fear, and now we get to see whether or not they want to prioritize that Nemesis, which did fall through to the second phase of bans in Game 1. It might just be a difference in meta for the SEC. These guys seem to prioritize a little bit more so these auto-attack, late-game hyper carries that we saw prioritized in the SPL towards the beginning of Phase 1, and it's going to continue into the second game. Kali getting picked up first off overall, going to act not only as a pick for themselves, but as a targeted ban towards Snake Pit. It should work out. We saw a little bit of value coming out from Kali. 8 and 4 was the slash line in Game 1. But again, it just seems so strange to me when there's so many other priority picks still available that we're seeing Kali and Kumbhakarna coming out first.
I call it the Johnny effect in the EU SCC. He's been so dominant in this region for so long, and that everyone just seems to assume that the gods he's playing are the best available gods. And I just don't think that's the case. I think that's just what he excels at. And it's really warped the whole meta around what he usually picks, and Kali's a great example of that. Kumbhakarna once again for Dazer, Rom once again for Spudio. No surprise there for the Snake Pit. Now remember, in their third pick, they did pick Kali last time, so maybe that's where we could find a Nemesis, as the Poppy's going to go to the Khepri. This was banned away from them in the second phase last time, and as if not being able to kill Kali once wasn't annoying enough, how about 2 times? And then you have to kill her a third on top of all of that. This is a scary comp already for the Papis.
It's going to be really good, but it's slow so far. They don't really have any way to get themselves through the early game, especially with Aphrodite rounding out that top 3 of the picks. You're going to have a very slow mid laner with a very slow jungler. I mean, Khepri can facilitate the early game a little bit just through Scarab's Blessing, be that defensive tool that it is. But he's going to be also very susceptible to ganks. If he ever gets caught out by Kumbhakarna, there's going to be a ton of chase down potential. The Poppies have a strong draft if they make it to that 25-30 minute mark. But as of right now, they don't really have any tools to get there.
Love this Hera pick here. Even though it isn't a Nemesis that we were kind of looking for, the Polymorph's so good against Kali and against Khepri. Just prevent them from using their save me buttons in the middle of a team fight. And a pretty long duration CC at that, I think, is very, very solid here in that pick. And of course, Angry looked fantastic on this pick in game number 1. Snake Pit really hasn't changed a whole lot so far. They haven't had to. And I agree with your assessment. The Poppies are looking a little bit late game, but now you have to effectively kill Kali 4 times in order to actually get her off the battlefield. Now, Undying Love, not as good as Destruction or Scarab's Blessing, but still awfully good at keeping one person alive. This just feels like we gotta let Marcus carry show. I mean, Marcus, if you're picking these 3 gods in this order, is it pretty much all on Marcus? Because I feel like it might be.
You're right. Yeah, you buried the lead a little bit. Marcus absolutely has a lot of pressure on him to perform this game because he's the only one on the team who's going to be able to get in there and do any damage at this point. Right now, we're thinking that they're going to have to pick up a new soul laner as well as a hunter, and it doesn't matter what your hunter is. I don't care if you lock in Izanami at this point. She's not going to bring enough pressure to get you into the late game, and even if your soul laner is absolutely dominating there as well, you still have this core 3v3 in the early that isn't really going to be able to compete with what we see Snake Pit bringing. Now they've got Hera and Nemesis with Sakuma Karna to set up for it. I mean, for the first 15 to 20 minutes, I think the Papis are just going to have to farm up their own jungle, play safely, hide inside their towers, wait for Marcus to get the kin size, get the hasten, whatever he needs online, because he's really the root of all the fights for Papis.
And now a Guardian in that solo lane, again, not really that early game pressure that you might be looking for. Hachiman once more for the Papis. So their 5 are now locked in, and their team fight seems pretty solid. A lot of sustain on their side. Of course, the Kali pocket strategy is really the call here. It's going to be up to Marcus, I feel like, for the Papis. Snake Pit looking for their solo laner, and it will be the Sun Wukong once again. Pretty easy for them. So they just trade out their jungler for a Nemesis. That seems pretty good to me in a composition that already looked solid. How do you feel about the Snake Pit's draft and if it can handle this annoying Kali comp on the other side?
It is annoying, but I think the Snake Pits in particular has a comp that can win out before their comp, the Papis rather, gets annoying. I'm really concerned about how well they're going to be able to transition themselves into that 30-minute mark, because if they do get there and they're even relatively even, the Papis should be able to win. This is a disgusting draft for them. It's just they still haven't taken a single piece that's going to help them get there.
Seems like the Papis are signing themselves up. They're making Marcus the protagonist of this game. It's all centered, the whole plot centered around whether Marcus is going to be able to get the job done. He's got all the tools to support him. We'll see if it's going to be a good game for Marcus or if they're going to force a game 3. Dave Olsen and Alpha Jackal on the call.
Hey, the Papis say, I liked what we saw out of Kali in game 1. Let's try her out here for ourselves in game number 2. Alpha Jackal, of course, as Aggro points out, still with me. Got Doug working the cams. And AJ, are you concerned about maybe some of the same things that the desk was and that the Papis maybe hinge entirely on Marcus?
If I'm concerned about anything, it's that the game might go exactly how game 1 went, with the Papis front line just falling by the wayside and the Snake Pit just sweeping through the rest of them.
Yeah, right, and you know, the ability to get there then is the important, I think, factor to look at now if you're the Papis. The Snake Pit have this draft very similar, if not almost the exact same to what they had last time. They're going to replace that Kali, of course, over with a Nemesis for Worst Turtle. So you look at it's another run back of the Sun Wukong, and then, of course, Nemesis. Hera, Kumbhakarna, and Ram. It's not like, I mean, it's going to be very hard to kind of keep up with the scaling of Kali into that late game. But it's not like a Hera doesn't get very good towards the end. It's like a Ram isn't very good into the late game, and Nemesis will be able to one-shot backliners, depending on the availability, of course, of the ultimates from the Papis. So, of course, a lot of this maybe hinges on Marcus and the ultimates surrounding him. But I think the Papis sticking with what worked in game 1 may be a smart strategy.
Yeah, I'm thinking that if they are able to just clean up a bit more of their team fights, as they had uncharacteristically not so great team fights in game number 1, a bit too spread out for my liking. They just close that bit up a bit more, which this draft kind of forces them to do.
Right.
Then it could be a bit more favorable for them, like you said.
And I did notice, just a split second here, we're working on getting game number 2 ready for you guys before we jump back in, so thanks for sticking with us. I did notice that Dazer had opted for Blink as his first active this time on the Kumbhakarna, so maybe a net win here for the Snake Pit if they're able to get this Kumbhakarna involved early, because there was woefully missing engage that ended up coming online later on. So do you like the change for Dazer here? Locking in that Blink.
I like it because it gives them more options in the early game, and it also means that Worst Turtle can go into these beads rather than needing to go into the Blink as his first relic. He's going to need this relic just because there's a lot more CC and a lot more control coming out from the Papis in this draft than it was in the last one. And he doesn't have that sort of instant I'm going to become immune button that he did on the Kali in the last game.
That's true. There are A lot of ultimates to work through here. Still, though, oh, nice polymorph on the back line there from Angry. Actually, maybe sets up a kill onto Chekio, who's able to get back his way away. But what the heck's going on over in the long lane? Warchi has picked up the first kill onto Spudio. You know, Khepri, not the same aggressive, in-your-face type of engager as some of the other support picks that we've seen. That abduct, that lockdown, that damage early can set up for some kills.
Oh, the abduct does an absurd amount of damage, and I'm partial to leveling it up first as a Khepri player, because the more you level it up, the longer your abduct lasts, so the longer your CC chain is. And, well, Draco Marino benefits from the fact that he has got that ability up with him. He gets the beat out of Spudio, but by the time he presses that beat, he's already been displaced enough for them to isolate him.
That's tough. Not often we've seen these engagement solo, I guess not necessarily a solo kill, but the engagement kills over in the long lane, but more of the same happening in the mid as Marcus makes his way over once again. This is where the pivot point was, remember, in game one. There was a lot of pressure put towards Angry early. They were only able to snag one kill. The Papis were onto Angry early in that game, so keeping this Hera in check is going to be vitally important. So maybe make some sense that already the Papis are putting a lot of pressure towards mid.
And also putting a lot of pressure on towards this purple buff Draco Marino. They're not going to let the Snake Pit have this one for free this early on. All the meanwhile, Warchi's just farming up the wave by himself, getting himself even further ahead. If you have an ADC with First Blood, why not give them, you know, a solo wave as well?
Yeah, why not? Get this Hachiman out and rolling early on here, because it was Spudio in the late, remember, as well. I mean, you talk about the Hera Rom 1-2 punch. It was Spudio that effectively started coming online as well on this Rom. The snipes just did way too much damage to be consistently dealt with time and time again by the Papis over there in game number one. So back to their own purple buff, the Papis will end up going here this time around. Marcus playing off of this Aphrodite quite well. I think the kind of counterpoint, and it's always the interesting topic I think we dive into with this Aphrodite, is that, you know, Get Back obviously does some good damage. You know, the Lovebirds do some good DOT damage. Might have to finish off this thought in just a moment, though, as Worst Turtle has made his way over to the long lane. Gonna drop down the ultimate. Draco Marino, not level 5 yet. Oh, but the three-man stun! Nearly enough, and it is enough this time to turn around to kill the Papis. Grab one. Snake Pit do turn around another. But it is the engage not to be. What a turnaround from the Papis.
And Daisy gets the kill with the belly bomb minion toss onto Draco Marino, and Westel's just stood there, well, I guess I'll die at the very end. It's a great turnaround there from the Papis, especially from Draco Marino to live that long. I don't think he had tank boots available to him. He's gone back to base to buy them just now. But he had his shell available, and that one point of shell allowed him to stay alive for as long as possible for Marcus to rotate through there.
Orgy nearly getting the fadeaway kill onto Dazer, who's going to make his way right on back to base. So the re-engagement, big-time stuns there, enough to keep the Papis alive in the long lane. Otherwise was looking like a pretty free and clear engagement. So well played, really, to both junglers. Worst Turtle looking for the engagement, but maybe better played to Marcus there on the immediate counterpunch. The thought that I was kind of looking towards is back towards that mid lane. Chekio, notably on this Aphrodite. Obviously a lot of utility in the healing and in the stun and the Undying Love, keeping, you know, teammates alive. Where do you land on the Aphrodite damage, though? I mean, obviously we've seen big damage, but maybe more tough to confirm on a consistent basis.
I mean, I'm in sort of the camp that Aphrodite isn't as strong as everyone's making her out to be, unless you're playing against Dardes, in which case it's an absolute must-ban, because Dardes is an absolute freak at this god. Outside of that, I think Aphrodite's manageable. I think she has, you know, points in the game where you can do well against her. I think the fact that her Undying Love no longer has an insanely low cooldown is really a point you can look to almost abuse in teamfights, because before it used to be 30 seconds or something, it'll be back up again, at which point it was very difficult to fight around.
Right.
But now you can go in, bait out that ultimate, reset the fight, and then go in again afterwards. So I do like the Aphrodite pick. I think it's a good, strong pick for this composition. I think it can do a fair bit of damage, but I'm looking at Creed to really supplement that magical damage as well with the Cerberus.
That's a good point. We haven't really gotten to touch on the solo lane here just yet. Terram still running back on the Sun Wukong. But Creed, a tough time, somehow an understatement on the Cthulhu in Game 1. I mean, the anti-dive was there. And the Snake Pit have effectively the same tools for slowing down this big frontline engagement. Maybe Creed is going to find it a little bit more consistently this game. A couple ultimates traded back and forth here. Marcus goes in, but immediately has to jump out. Destruction still ready if Worst Turtle is going to double dash his way in, but we'll hold on to that one. So Worst Turtle, Angry both drop down their ultimates. Marcus stays alive. I hesitate because Dazer lurking around the corner here. Instead, just going to get abducted. Dazer, the triple Mez, will stay alive this time. But Snake Pit still bringing some fire here, but Marcus stays alive.
And what's more, Dazer gets hit by the enemy support's CC and engage and then doesn't immediately die from it, so he's feeling a lot better himself this game than he was on the last, and he's going to go ahead and engage onto Warchi. Good blink epic uppercut, but Warchi still has that mounted archery. He's going to be completely safe.
That's true, and you need some extra pressure here. Warchi's already pulled that one-level lead over his counterpart for good reason. Warchi's on a killing spree here. The 2 kills that the Papis swung back on that Worst Turtle attempted gank both went into Warchi, so this lane has gotten so difficult for Spudio. Devo's Gauntlet's already completed and stacked up a decent bit by Warchi as well. When he goes back, the boots may be able to be completed on top of that. So definitely makes some sense that they're going to send Dazer back over there, the Snake Pit are, try to prop up Spudio, maybe just a little bit extra. Still looking over at the purple buff, though. Warchi is here, Mez down, Worst Turtle claps down, some good damage. Oh, Warchi finds the stun, but the snipes are here from Spudio. He just needs one more.
Good backstep.
But Warchi able to sidestep, and another kill gets away from the Snake.
The Barracuda backstep, it's a classic right there from Warchi, and he gets himself out of that sticky situation because of it. It was a good rotation there from the Snake Pit to try and defend that buff, but left alone in the mid lane is Chekio, and he gets obliterated because of it.
Yeah, not surprising when Angry has the completed boots Divine Ruin online. Chekio gets absolutely crushed there. Worst Turtle was in range, dropped the ultimate on the mid laner as well. That funneling as much pressure maybe through Angry to kind of counterpunch some of what the Papis have been looking to do and putting Angry behind. Hasn't been as consistent maybe as Game 1. But Hera absolutely swings early. We talk about how she is strong late. That's a pretty good microscope on really where the strength is. Just power boots and Divine Ruin in.
Yeah, it's kind of why you do see most Heras rush in for something like a Chronos Pendant or a Spirit Desolation early. Not these traditional huge power-based items, but it's because they can afford to lose that bit of power, lose that bit of pen just to go for a bit more utility. And that utility is coming out in the anti-heal for this Divine Ruin, or the cooldown reduction coming out in terms of a Chronos Pendant. And they still output a hell of a lot of damage. That Argus Slam Down is where it really hurts. So if you've been hit by one, it just chunks beyond belief.
Oh, it does, and it displaces you even for a little bit there. I mean, in that moment, all you're thinking about is how do I get out of this because Argus is being so obnoxious. Definitely some utility there for the Snake Pit as well. One thought that was sort of interrupted by some engagement by the Papis in the Snake Pit earlier was Creed on this Cerberus, and he had a tough time, remember, in Game 1 finding engagements. And again, point made last time was that there was enough counter-engage from the Snake Pit to slow down that Cthulhu. Might get interrupted again, as Dazer is taken down to half HP, but they'll back themselves off. Do you think the Cerberus has an easier time of finding engagements than maybe what the Cthulhu did?
I think his impact's going to be easier this game, considering it's much more confined to a few seconds rather than 10, 12 seconds in a fight. Drake and Marino going to get engaged upon and going to force to be reviving himself rather than the Kali. Up into the sky goes Spudio, and he should land back down into some trouble, but Worst Turtle gets rid of one option.
That's right, the Snake Pit pull one, but the Papis pull one right back. Spudio's still alive, but it's protect the president, but Warchi bypasses the security here. Marcus into the destruction. The stun is down as well, and Angry will end up falling. It's a 3-for-1 as we stand for the Papis. A couple kills being brought back, though, by the Snake Pit. As Worst Turtle will get another one onto Warchi, but Creed rotates into the back line of the engagement. In a split-up fight, Papis may be feeling a little better off for it.
That's a good confidence booster for the Papis. They're the ones that sort of engage on that fight. They get a good return out of it. They may get even more here with the Golfria being started, but Terrorum That's exactly what's happening. Daze's respawn blinks already past the zone coming out from iCreed. But the Gold Fury wasn't even anywhere near done, let alone started, so bit of a wasted relic there from Dazer. Big win for the Papis.
That's right, the Papis at least feeling confident enough to pivot around that Gold Fury. About 1,000 gold in the lead up to this point, so maybe that's a win, Alpha Jackal, for the Snake Pit, is the lopsided fights. Really notably, that one dive, or not dive, the gank into the long lane really went the Papis' way. But the Snake Pit have done well enough, I think, keeping themselves relevant. The 1-level lead on Angry in the mid lane may be where some of the gold lead mitigation comes from.
Yeah, and it's quite interesting to see that both solo laners opted against this TP relic that we see a load of solo laners do from, casual play all the way to the Pro League. It's almost like it's consistently there for both solo laners, but both of them opting for the blink instead. We're sort of drifting away from that you must get TP to farm every single wave possible style of solo lane to a bit more utility, a bit more rotate heavy style play, which is why you started to see Wukong come back into competitive play a bit more. It's why you're seeing Guardians come back as well, because they synergize extremely well with their second relic slot.
And maybe some of that is Creed saying, alright, I'm tired of walking in face first and getting polymorphed and silenced and mezzed when I'm trying to fight, so I'm just going to blink in this time, pop the ultimate, and there's not much you can say or do about it, but definitely is going to be some of that as well from Terram. So something the Papis have to be mindful of as well. Still a 1-level lead building up in this long lane. You need to fight around Warchi right now if you're the Papis. The 4, 1, and 3 Hachiman has massive value for you 13 minutes in. That's why Gold Fury may be being looked at here, but both teams have shown us they like slowing things down around these objectives. Snake Pit's still strong enough to turn around a big fight around an objective.
But I would say for the Papis, right now is not the time to have a look for a fight. Yes, they're sort of in the lead and they want to try and extend it, but there's 2 major items of theirs that I would like to see them get online before they get this fight going, and that's Warchi's Atlantis Bow. He's 1 tier away from that, and Marcus getting his Haste of Katana online. But looks like they're going to go ahead and look for this fight anyway regardless, just because they got massive positional advantage and the fact that Creed's made his rotation.
Gold Fury was at half HP, but then reset right on back to full. Papis moving their way forward. Chekio has received the worst turtle ultimate here. Terram blinks into the backline, snipes from Spudio. They're going to melt down some decent damage here. Undying Love popped. So some value out of that to keep the Aphrodite alive, but how about on the back end? Argus chasing down Creed here, so the Cerberus has to disengage. Down from the snipes goes Spudio. Scarab's Blessing onto 1 is going to pull Marcus right back into the fight. That's 1 death already for the Kali. Destruction still awaiting right around the corner, but the Snake Pit not worried about it as Terram jumps in, gets the kill. Down onto Warchi he goes, but Creed has enough damage to finally finish off Worst Turtle here. And now the Papis in this tug of war are going to move back forward.
Nearly a good blink stun there from Creed. Positions themselves well for it, just a bit too much to the left. But now, because of that out-of-combat healing, look who's the healthier of the 2 teams. It's the Papis. They're going to go ahead and snag up this Gold Fury. No contest coming out from the Snake Pit either.
Yeah, maybe not surprising there. The Snake Pit not healthy enough to contest with an Aphrodite who's still alive, sustaining the rest of your team around those objectives. So maybe that's something to be looked at as well. Obviously, the healing in fight is always going to be important from an Aphrodite, but if there's these long, drawn-out engagements, both teams left somewhat worse for wear. Snake Pit obviously have to be mindful that Chekio's going to give maybe a second life in there, and maybe that's what lends Angry to picking up this Divine Ruin first.
Well, and also the Toxic Blade coming out from Worst Turtle. I'd imagine we're going to be seeing a Brawler's Beat Stick from him as well. And not too many junglers can opt into both of them, but Nemesis is certainly one of the few that's got that luxury of having basic attack-centric kit, whilst also having quite a few abilities that can proc it off as well with that Slice and Dice, the Shield Reflection, as well as that ultimate and the dashes, all 4 of which will be used to proc up the Brawler's Beat Stick.
Well, Worst Turtle is going to try to flex some of that damage potential here, misses the slow onto Warchi as the Hachiman dashes away. We had a conversation, pretty extensive conversations around this Nemesis and, attack damage or auto-attack based build versus ability-based build, a bit of a hybrid here. You point out why she's maybe able to do both, but junglers oftentimes will opt for really one over the other.
No.
We'll have to return to that thought here. Oh, nice whiz down from Dazer to slow down Marcus here, but the ultimate from Creed is going to try to pull back onto Angry, but B's enough to save Hera's life. You just cannot kill the Hera just yet. Argus trying to peel the polymorph there. Marcus finally gets the kill. As Angry ends up going down, but Snake Pit answering back. Small collapse on their own. Marcus still has destruction here. Scarab's Blessing onto Chekio, and they will not pop that bubble. Enough healing. Keep the Aphrodite in it. One last snipe from Spudio might be enough to get it done, but he misses on the back line. Warchi has now found the Rom, who's crashed back down to earth. The snipe is there. Creed trying desperately to melt down the damage, but Warchi will drop the flag, get the kill all on his own. The Papis, that fight may have just broken this game open.
Yeah, well, they just weren't able to deal with the dive coming out from Marcus. They weren't able to deal with the revive coming out from Drake and Marino. Chekio lives by the skin of his teeth as well. But how much damage did Creed just do to Angry there? His Smite just erases the health bar of the Hera underneath the tower. They're going to be rewarded with this Fire Giant 17 minutes into the game. When I saw the draft, I was scared that it was going to be sort of a repeat with the similar draft coming out from Snake Pit, but it's just going to be turned around completely here. Fire Giant goes away, the Papis, Worst Turtle running for the hills, and Snake Pit, they need to try and find an answer and quick.
And this is maybe best case scenario for the Papis. We know they wanted to keep the Kali alive, 4-0-4, affecting 8 out of the 11 kills is Marcus, as well as having Warchi early on relevant. You know, you can take those fights maybe on the left side of the map when your Hachiman is off to a 3-0 start just a couple minutes into the game. So the Papis absolutely in a position where they're able to control the pace, control the direction of this game. The Snake Pit, as mentioned, have some counter scaling on their own, but there hasn't been the answer consistently enough, or I guess 4 answers to this Kali jumping into the backline.
That fight started off with the worst possible scenario for the Snake Pit. Angry has his relics forced, he has his ultimate forced, Dazer isn't able to peel for him as well as he would like, and you just lose your Hera before the fight's even begun. That's rock bottom in terms of how the fight should be going for the Snake Pit. So it can only get better from here, hopefully.
Yeah, you would think, and you know, it wasn't like Angry wasn't doing his best. There were the polymorphs ringing through, the shielding was going to try to keep him alive, was able to do so for a little while, a couple members of the Snake Pit peeled back, but all the reasons we mentioned in picks and bans and early on in this game, that this Kali was going to be tough to kill, have absolutely come out to play here. Marcus linked up with Chekio, as we'd expect. Creed around the backside here, blinks on in, he's found 3 with his ultimate, a couple beads used. So Dazer, the only one pulled back in. Angry drops Argus immediately to try to slow down this fight, but it's a 3-man stun from Marcus as he engages on the back line of the Snake Pit. Bye-bye health bars as Warchi has a double. Spudio will answer back with one of his own, but it's a killing spree suddenly for Chekio. 2 members left alive for the Snake Pit. One of them's Terram, who's left running.
And the other one is Worst Turtle, who's currently back at base, or sorry, in the mid-tier 2 tower. And Papis are going to ignore both of them. They're going to go straight ahead on this left-hand side, get this Phoenix down. Marcus with a beautiful secondary engagement in that fight. Fortunately for himself, he does fall, but 3 very quick kills there for the Snake Pit, for the Papis, sorry.
Oh, it's a dream, right? Where Creed makes his way over the wall, finds a couple with his ultimate, then immediately 2 pairs of beads have to get burned. Look how synced up Angry and Spudio's beads are. They're used at the exact same time there, do the exact same thing, and the door's open then for Marcus to re-engage, as you point out. So the Papis absolutely comfortable with where things are. Left side Phoenix now taken down, and that's maybe worst case scenario now, as the Fire Giant will be back up in the next couple of minutes. You have to deal with fire minions on the exact opposite side of the map.
Yeah, and it's going to be a difficult decision here for Snake Pit. Do they like to defend onto this left-hand side, or do they look to try and 5-man group and defend the Fire Giant? Well, it might be 4-man if Worst Turtle gets caught out here. Looks like they have spotted out that Nemesis. Their attempts at CC are going to miss, but they're going to force the beats out after that kiss does successfully hit. And down goes the jungle.
I'm not sure what Worst Turtle is looking for there. The Papis are obviously going to be moving their way over towards this Fury. Maybe Worst Turtle just didn't think it was going to be that soon overall. So 4 members still with this Fire Giant buff for now 2.5 minutes. Could be enough time to siege down this mid lane Phoenix. It could get worse, depending on how heavily the Snake Pit want to defend this one. It's a 4v5 if the Papis go all out. They might just be able to end the game. Maybe that's what they're looking for here. Days are stunned down. The birds are going to tick down some good damage as well. Argus from Angry is going to peel down damage onto the back line of the Papis, but walking their way away after a free mid lane Phoenix and maybe over towards the FG after spending some gold.
Yeah, 1 minute till it spawns. Fire Giant Belt just disappeared from the waist of the Papis. This is the time to go back, buy those items, buy those wards up, and just get yourself into a good position. But I don't even think they need to necessarily ward to stop anyone incoming for the fight. They just need to stop that 1 or 2 man steal potential that every team is going to try and throw at this point.
You know, the Snake Pit, what we saw around this point was in game 1 was really the Papis pretty far behind. So if there's a saving grace now, outside of maybe a composition disadvantage, is that the Snake Pit, at least level-wise and maybe not so much gold-wise, it's a 9,000 gold lead here for the Papis, but at least level-wise, somewhat close on here. All of the map pressure going the wrong way, though. If you're the Snake Pit, the counter out is to group up around this red buff. Not sure what objectives are being looked at here by the Snake Pit. Maybe searching out for a fight, but 4 members have to back off as the right side security tower is going to go down. Now looking at a Phoenix.
Yeah, they just realize that no one's going to come stop them as of yet. Just keep pushing until you can see the enemies, and they eventually force the Snake Pit all the way back to base. Stop them pushing down that left-hand side tier 2. I think that was the goal from the Snake Pit, was to just zone out and let Spudio do what he can in lane by himself. But now, with all of them back to base, it's almost forcing them to do something at this Fire Giant, or just force themselves back into the lanes. And looks like they're going to give up this Fire Giant, look to try and fight other Phoenixes? I'd send someone to try and steal at the very least.
Terram is close by, but that's really about it. I mean, Spudio is farming up Harpies, purple buff goes down now for himself, so there was no answer, and not because they weren't aware. I think the Snake Pit, to your point, Alpha Jackal, just letting that one go down. But the way the last 2 Phoenixes have crumbled, it's been almost no pushback from the Snake Pit, so I am surprised, I have to admit, there wasn't even an attempt to maybe try to peel that one away. Sometimes that's what you need to get yourself back into the game, and now with the left side Phoenix respawning, that'll be made quick work of, but your base is crumbling, and you just let the FG go down. So an interesting call nonetheless.
So you don't defend onto your left-hand side Phoenix, the one that's probably the best to have up and defended. You don't elect to defend onto the mid lane Phoenix either.
Right.
You don't elect to defend onto the Fire Giant.
Right.
Where's the line? Where's the final stand being
Let's
made?
go.
Where's the hill?
The Titan, I suppose, is what we're barreling towards here. I mean, the left side Phoenix now spawns right back out. Marcus left alone, so no safety net outside of the destruction here. If Worst Turtle looks for the one-on-one engagement, Marcus will easily take down this left side Phoenix. If Worst Turtle has to back off, even just for a moment here. The clap is there. Marcus is going to make his way onto the Phoenix. Worst Turtle trying to chase him down, but does a good bit of damage there. This Nemesis does decent damage. Creed pulled back in thanks to the Scarab's blessing, and now the ultimate is going to get beads out by Angry. The Hera punch right there to slow down Creed. Right side Phoenix still standing. Snipes looking for their target, but an Undying Love slows down the engagement. Marcus blinks in, finds the stun. Angry backpedaling his way away, but the destruction swirling down, and Angry will end up falling. Finally, there's a kill here for the Papis, and that's the opening they may need.
Yeah, that unfortunately was a reset mark kill for Marcus there. If you're a fan of the Snake Pit, that's the worst possible scenario. It's Terrorim. He's going to get engaged on here as well. One last hit from anyone who should do it, but he's not the one dying. His teammates are dying.
That's got to be it here. The mid lane Phoenix is going to end up falling. The Papis 5 strong, all of them with the FG buff. Spudio, no miracle play this time around. The Papis in 25 minutes. We're going to tie up the series and send us on to a game number 3. Seemed to be written on the walls there, though, Alpha Jackal, since the first couple of minutes of this game, and the Papis were able to run away with it by the end.
Yeah, it started pretty much the exact same way game number 1 started, but instead of around the 15-minute mark, the tide's turning, it was just the Papis decided to kick it into overdrive and just decimate any hope that that Snake Pit had of getting back into the game. They didn't have the answer to the Kali, they didn't have the answer to to the Kali, to the Afro.
Right.
The Hachiman was just there free casting as well. If you can't deal with the initial problem, how are you going to deal with the rest of the team?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the composition, of course, we kind of put it in the perspective that it was built around this Kali, but then even individually, if you're not rezzing the Kali, not undying love the Kali every single time, those are still ultimates that are going to go on to other people that are still obnoxious to deal with depending on the rest of the fight. So great composition there from the Papis. That ties up this set. The all-exciting round out of this set. Game number 3, right on the other side of this break.
Well, it seems like the Papis, with Marcus as the main character, their show has just been renewed for a second season because they hang on and win game number 2, forcing a game number 3. But Miff, we thought it was going to be the Marcus show, and to some degree it was. The Kali's certainly very, very important in that game. But how about Warchi on the Hachiman? He popped off in this game.
Yeah, I was concerned about how well the Papis were able to get themselves to mid-game. I hadn't taken into account the fact that Warchi was just going to absolutely manhandle the long lane almost single-handedly for 10 minutes straight, and then immediately transition that into a mid-game Gold Fury fight that really sets them ahead. From there, you're right, Marcus did carry the game from that point forward, but Warchi, man, absolutely free casting, finding damage whenever he needed to. And even with a dive-heavy comp that we saw from Snake Pit, Sun Wukong, Nemesis, even this support, none of that was really able to close the gap to the Hachiman. Meanwhile, Marcus just absolutely dominating the backline of the Snake Pit as well. It's just this double-pronged attack that never really got addressed.
20k damage for Warchi in a game that didn't go much longer than that in terms of minutes. He absolutely dominated in that long lane, and you feel like if you're in the Papis' shoes, you got to be a little bit frustrated, not necessarily that you lost the game, period, but the way in which you lost it. Do you think they went a little bit too aggressive? I mean, that's the only way that that team composition gets off to a great start, is if the enemy team makes some mistakes and kind of lets you, right?
I think it is a little bit of that, but a lot of the lead really did originate just from that long lane. It was just an ADC diff that transitioned itself into a couple of mistakes around the jungle that were easily played off of by the Papis. I think it's generally frustrating, not even just the mistakes that were made, but losing out in the early game to a draft like we just saw, where there's literally 5 late game picks. That's got to feel really bad. You're really expected to win out early, transition yourselves into the mid game. It's on the Papis to withstand the early game and then hopefully make it to late. And it's just not what we saw.
Yeah, I agree. Well, let's see what changes they want to make in game number 3. This Kali, so far today, Miff, not just for this set, but in set number 1 as well, 100% win rate. I got to keep an eye on this weekend, especially on the European half, though this is our final European game of the day. We've got NA coming up next. First opportunity to see the Snake Pit in first pick position, but with the way the bans have kind of been going, I don't expect a whole lot of difference here for these two teams.
We might see them decide to leave Persephone open or something along those lines. When they're on first pick, they could decide to not ban out all those priority picks that we've been seeing taken away and see if they'll be willing to play it themselves. When Papis were in first pick, they banned out Persephone, they banned out Amaterasu, all these fantastic picks that they could have been looking for. We might see Papis not shift up their bans and it's going to maintain that same pace, but I think the Snake Pit are in a position where they can afford themselves a couple of targeted bans that are going to leave the meta available.
Cupid and Olarun, the same two bans for the Snake Pit that they've been doing all set long. It's been Amaterasu first ban every time for the Papis. Last game it was Cthulhu, then Persephone. The ban that I'm looking forward to seeing here is this one for the Snake Pit. Do they go back to that Yamoja ban that they've had pretty much all set long, now that they are the ones that could pick it first? If you leave both Yamoja and Persephone open, you open up the draft a whole lot. Seems like Snake Pit do not want to do that, and I imagine makes it pretty easy here for the Papis. Ban Persephone, and you're kind of chilling. Nemesis hasn't looked that good. I wonder if it's just going to be Kali first pick at this point. It's kind of got to be, right?
I mean, I don't see anything else coming through here. It's the only guy that we've seen both teams prioritizing so high up in their draft. Well, you know, it's interesting in its own right, seeing this difference between the metas of the SPL and the SEC, seeing how they developed separately, although there are similar threads of just, we still value the gods like Yamoja, like Persephone, we're just not really willing to force ourselves into a position where we can play them. But now the Papis, being in the second pick position, can look towards taking away some of the priority picks that we've seen from Snake Pick. They might even be looking to take the Kumbhakarna, which is crazy to think about, and it's crazy that it came out of my mouth for a first pick potential god at a land phase, but it is going to come through. I mean, my eyes immediately, just from casting so much FSPL, are going towards Nemesis right now, but I think we might even see the ROM pick come through here as well.
But with how well Warchi just played that Hachiman, I wonder if they are going to prioritize it. Decide they will. It seems like the teams have just kind of swapped. If the bans weren't the same as they've been for these two teams the whole time, I'd be wondering if that's what happened, but this is just kind of the way this set has really developed. I'm just very surprised, Miff. I mean, this Kumbhakarna, super annoying for Kali to deal with. A very good matchup for him, one of his best. But Draco just played that Khepri so well. Now you're leaving Khepri open for Snake Pit to take and try and do the same thing to you. It's a good counter pick, sure, but I don't even know if Dazer's been impactful enough to warrant the counter pick so far.
Yeah, I don't like the pick in general, just because you could have taken something a lot more valuable. And as you said, he looked really good on that Khepri, which would have been a fantastic counter matchup into this Kali. And now Snake Pit picking up Geb for themselves. It seems like they're trying to run back a very similar strategy that we saw last game with the Kali coming through, in that it's going to be kill him multiple times, get through the destruction, get through the Geb shield, get through whatever you have to. It's interesting to see that Aphrodite didn't come through there for Snake Pit, considering that's what we saw Papis running, and it worked out so well for them. And now Hera making it through means that the Papis are likely going to be in a position where they can just ban out the Afro if they so choose.
So let me get this straight. The Papis lose game 1, then game 2 they go to this different style of composition. They play against this exact draft from Snake Pit and crush it in 24 minutes with a Kali-based composition. And then against the Kali, they're picking the exact draft that Snake Pit just lost with. I mean, isn't that... look, I'm not saying that you're guaranteed to lose with this draft. I just think it's kind of funny that this is the way that they're deciding to go, knowing what just happened to these exact same 3 gods in the last game.
Yeah, and they're leaving the Aphrodite available just to make sure that if they really do want to run it back against the exact same draft, they can, but in reverse. I mean, it just seems like it's a little bit of disrespect from the Papis. Okay, look, that's how we beat you. We'll run your draft now. Let's trade it up. I don't want you guys thinking even for a second that we beat you based on our picks. It was all 100% player skill. Let me prove it now. And that really seems like it's going to be the case of what they're looking for. It's just the ban phase right here is so interesting because instead of going for the Aphrodite or something along those lines, they immediately ban out the Morrigan. Snake Pit decided to ban out some aggressive supports. So Nemesis is going to make it through 10 total bans. It just seems like they're really developing a new meta on the fly.
It's the same comp. This is the exact same composition that we just saw lose to the Kali. I cannot wait to see what happens in this game, man, because either way, we're going to have a great storyline to talk about on the desk afterwards. Both Khepri and Cerberus, though parts of that composition for the Papis, banned away this time around, and the Yorm comes out, a god that once dominated the SPL and every league underneath, but has since fallen off the wayside a little bit. Do you think Yorm is worth picking in this climb?
I think there's a reason we haven't really seen him. Even when Jormungandr Specialist Rowe got to play a couple of games, he didn't go to that pick. It's because he doesn't really get the pressure in solo lane anymore. Recent itemization changes for Warriors means that they're likely going to be able to out-sustain the majority of the time. The main pride of Jormungandr is the ability to control Totem of Ku, and if that's a Jingchen solo, he's absolutely going to be able to do that. But up against this draft in particular, Jormungandr is going to be incredibly squishy. Nemesis hits you with the ultimate. All of a sudden, that huge ability to dive the backline and disrupt it is going to be immediately stripped away just because of all the damage output that the Papis have. I think Jormungandr is a highly volatile pick, and that it has certain assets that are just done better by other gods. Why would you want a Jormungandr when you could pick a Sun Wukong?
And Sun Wukong is the only god missing from the Papis draft that they just beat on the other side. I was really, really hoping for it, but alas, we've got a Guardian over there in Xingchen. So what do you think, Mifflin? Forget about the teams, because that clearly is just up in the air. They love this composition. Do you think it's good enough this time to win against the Kali, or do you think the Kali keeps her 100% win rate?
It's hard to say because of the Jingchen solo being that one weakness of their draft, I'd say. I think that this Kali draft could very easily run away with it, but the safety and the exact same thing of you have to kill her 4 or 5 times to really kill her isn't really there for Snake Pit this game. I think I might favor Papis draft.
Somewhere near the northern U.S., I just heard DeWorst get angry that you hated on Xingchen solo. Let's get it off. You got to go call him and apologize right now. That's okay, because we're throwing it to Dolson and Alpha Jackal for the cast.
An interesting pivots out of the solo lane this time around, Alpha Jackal. It is the Jormungandr for Terrorim, and the Xingchen over there for Creed. So another new look matchup over in solo, and maybe more interestingly than all, Creed is going to be opting for that Mage's Blessing on the Xingchen right off the bat.
Doesn't feel threatened enough to take the Warrior's Blessing, but I think that just comes down to his passive, his HP 5, giving himself a lot more health, a lot more sustain in lane, because he is going to be spamming out those abilities left, right, and center onto Terran, looking to poke him down a fair bit. It's a decent matchup for Creed as well, considering he does have that hook slam, which will activate the passive from Jormungandr, meaning he will take more damage.
And I think the storyline is probably set here in this one, and the desk spot on. The Papis opting for near exact same composition that they just beat, that the Snake Pit just lost with in game number 2. So now here in game 3, it's going to be difficult for us mentally, I think, to keep up with it, because it's been what the Snake Pit have enjoyed so far this set. But the Merlin is an interesting change, I think, here. Haven't seen him so far, banned out once or twice so far up to this point today. Where do you think Merlin stands in the mid lane at the moment? Maybe why haven't we seen him as much as we used to?
I think it's just he has lost a fair bit of power. He has been nerfed consistently, and that has obviously tanked his win rate below what it once was. He still gets decent pressure in the mid lane, especially at that level 1, level 2 mark, because of the fact he does have access to 2 abilities at level 1. Right. But I think it's a good pickup here, especially considering it's Angry playing him. Angry, typically a high-skill mechanical mid laner, likes to play those gods with those same sort of parameters, and Merlin certainly falls into that category.
Angry and Worst Turtle are going to pair up here and trying to counter out what Marcus and Chekio are doing there. And to kind of continue on with the similar composition conversation, is that so much of what worked for the Papis previously was this Kali left unchecked, some of what you're seeing here in the mid lane. But the Snake Pit don't have the Khepri, they don't have the Aphrodite, they don't have the same level of re-engage, maybe, available for this Kali. Do you still think, though, that the Snake Pit, Kali maybe more specifically, can find some value despite missing some of that extra utility?
I think it just comes down to how well do they play around the double Guardian threat from the Papis. back when it was Season 2 finals, and people were going, oh, it's just going to be Bell Slap destroying the entire league, it's not even going to be close. Papis came and put a screeching halt to their juggernaut of a train just by having a double Guardian composition. The crux of it was having a Kumbhakana in their draft, so it admittedly wasn't a solo lane rather than the Xing Chen being in the solo lane as the solo laner for the Kumbhakana, but it's still pretty much the exact same thing here. They're looking for a similar draft, and I think it's going to work out well for them. It's something that they practiced a lot, something they're very versed with, and it just allows them to control team fights extremely well.
And you know, what a weird, and I mean that in the best way possible, world we're living in now, where like the Kumbhakarna ROM first couple of picks isn't just a one-off, it's like actually the meta that we saw form here in this set. Kumba, outside of the first couple minutes of game number 1, has had a pretty decent set so far. Angry forced to flicker away. Marcus will walk in. I think more interesting though, you know, Kali 100% win rate, but it's this Nemesis. Hasn't won yet here today. Over up to this point, 0% win rate. Just been so mitigated. Hasn't found the value that we've seen at, you know, maybe the SPL level.
And I don't really have an answer for why it's not done that well. Maybe it's just been the fact that in the games where the Nemesis has been picked, it's just been up against compositions which do extremely well against the Nemesis. I mean, yes, you have 8% anti-heal available to you as a Nemesis if you build correctly, but what good is that going to do when you can't kill them for 7 seconds? It's not the best world to be in.
That's true, right? In the last game, and sort of the point I was going for rather, as I threw to break after the last game, is that even if you're not using all of those re-heals and revives on Akali, you know, Undying Love is going to be great for slowing down the Nemesis. The Kepri res as well. I mean, it's so difficult to play through. So Nem has been mitigated here today, and always interesting to watch. It's kind of the ebbs and flows of the SPL meta down to these SEC playoff weekends. But this is one where it would maybe make some sense if the team slowed things down. We've been at a pretty fast-paced EU things considered up to this point, but haven't seen much, whereas in game number 1 around this time was already long lane ganks happening, solo kills kind of across the board. But then you look at the gold and the ebbs and flows of that. There was a small lead for the Snake Pit, but largely nothing to be looked at here. And I think one pick that we haven't really been able to talk about all that much, Alpha Jackal, is this Geb, and maybe where his value stands. You know, obviously has some good setup and maybe some engage, but what do you think about Dazer moving over to the Geb here in this one?
It's been a largely ignored pick in the Pro League for the longest time. I think the last time Geb really was a potent pick was back in Season 5 Worlds, back when Divios had absolute whale of a time playing on it in the solo lane. But nowadays, not such a strong pick, but does still bring the utility they want him to. Good amount of health chunking. The cleanse from the shield is what you're looking at, and they're also looking at Marcus here in the mid lane.
Marcus has to dash away from that one. Stays alive, but the Cataclysm providing some decent damage there from Dazer. Nearly picks up first blood onto Marcus, but the Poppy's able to escape alive from that one. So we've started to reach kind of that first rotation period for these supports out of lane, and I suppose if nothing else, Geb has the ability to move around the map quickly. Over to the mid lane he goes, but the answer back from Chekio there. Destruction popped by Worst Turtle, but Marcus pops a health bar right on the other end. Dazer trying desperately to make his way away. Just one tick of damage from range. Chekio will not find it. Poppies, they grab first blood. Oh, around the backside goes Marcus. Blink, clap, shield though. Oh, the knock-up! That's enough to turn it around. Angry ends up grabbing the kill there, and unexpected maybe there from Marcus, and the Snake Pit pull one back.
I mean, that was just pure greed right there from Marcus.
Absolutely.
Looking for the 1 health Geb, and Dazer just turns around and goes, no, you're gonna die this time, not me. I've got a shield. I am Geb. You cannot kill me.
Unfortunate, but that, you know, did open, so maybe the smallest win there is for the Poppies. They grab first blood in that engagement. It is over to Marcus, so that would have been a big swing. Marcus gets first blood and then a kill on the Geb, potentially underneath the tier 1 tower, but instead one goes over to Angry. And look at how that's affected the mid lane. It's a 2-level lead here for the Merlin over Chekio, and that's maybe something we've seen is Hera struggling early on here, but being able to mitigate those struggles and stay relevant into the mid game is very, very important now for Czechia.
Well, this is sort of how the Snake Pit operate. They operate the sort of the similar way that Belt's Lab do, and they like to give a lot of solo farm to their mid laner, allow the jungler a bit more freedom to pick up farm when and where they want, just so they can be a bit more omnipresent around the map, as a fight does break out on the left-hand side. First snipe's going to miss, second snipe not going to be fired whatsoever. Warchi uses beats early on. Marcus is here trying to turn this kill around.
Warchi will end up going down. Marcus is going to drop the ult, but won't result in really anything there. Draco Marino grabs the root, but Worst Turtle will leap himself away. How about the presence of mind there from Spudio? Find the engagement. Now 1 level lead for the Jing Wei to slow down that ROM, and then a good rotation over from Dazer. Just a bit too slow on the counter rotation from the rest of the Papis. So the Snake Pit starting to put some pressure continued on the left side of this map. We've seen decent bit of fighting there. Remember when Warchi got 3 kills, and this is a bit of a non-statement, that's where the rest of the game kind of flowed through for the Papis in game number 2. So I like the answer here from the Snake Pit, putting pressure on the long lane.
I like it as well. It's something which not a lot of teams have been able to successfully do, is keep Warchi pinned down quite early on, because he does sort of act as a talisman for this team. You know, one of the longest, if not the longest standing member of the Papis, has played multiple roles for this team, from mid lane to ADC. I think it was even solo lane just for a tiny bit of time, but has found home in the ADC position, and he does lead and rally the team from time to time. He is very vocal in these, in their comms. And so if you're able to put him down, if you're able to put him, a bit more quiet, you could start to look at shutting down the rest of the Papis' fluidity.
And luckily, the Devourer's Gauntlet's still there for Warchi despite dying a moment ago, so able to sustain through a lot of the damage that Spudio puts out from time and time again. So maybe no more fighting here unless this happens. Dazer is going to make his way around the back. No beads this time from Warchi. Oh, nice roll off to the side, though. Difficult to turn the Geb. So Warchi's able to stay alive. Draco Marino in on the attempted body slam, but won't be there. That's a good call from the Snake Pit, realizing Bede's still down for a little bit longer. Poppy's still feeling aggressive, though. Walk their way towards this purple buff. Around the backside, the question is always where the answer is, and right now it's going to be Angry, and that's enough to force the Poppies back. Maybe.
Looks like it is going to still be an attempted invade, but with Angry making the rotation as well, that purple buff is going to be secured by the Snake Pit. And that's what the mid lane pressures allowed Angry to do, is rotate and influence the rest of the map a bit further than Czechio's been able to do so far. It's just been stuck, hammered in this mid lane, trying to catch up to this Merlin. And there's not been much action around this mid lane outside of that one tiny fight at the beginning of the game that got the first blood. It has been primarily over on this left-hand side, so the solo lane has been left completely isolated on an island, and well, they haven't really called for any help whatsoever. They're both content with how it's going.
But you bring it up, and now there is some action over into the mid lane. Argus from Czechio chasing down Dazer, and Marcus will get the kill there. Big time uppercut this time was over onto Worst Turtle. And no real threat there as the destruction was available on the back end of things. So Dazer goes down, and the Poppies snag another kill in the mid lane. Marcus limping away with red HP.
Marcus able to live there because of the extra protections afforded to him by that stone-cutting sword. Not an item you see built first on many characters, but I think the fact that he's just getting this item online early means he wants to just try and take down this Geb as quickly as possible. It will allow Warchi to focus on the same target a bit easier by reducing their physical protections. Don't forget, it's for basically having 30 penetration on an item, because it's going to remove those protections and give it to you as well.
Opting for penetration now are both of the mid laners. Spear of Desolation to start off from them. But looking maybe over to a little bit of lifesteal here is Angry right after the Spear of Desolation first item there. Does that surprise you at all, Merlin moving into some of the lifesteal items maybe after the bit of penetration brought in early?
I don't mind it whatsoever. I think especially if it's going to go to a soul gem, which looks like it is going to be going into, it's a great pickup. I think it's one of the best, if not the best, mage item in the game right now is soul gem, and the gods are able to abuse it very easily. Your Yanuses, your Merlins, Hera, gods that can spam out their abilities and still output a lot of damage and burst people down very easily. They're the gods which favor this meta a bit more, in my opinion.
Well, maybe Angry's gonna get a little bit closer to completing that item here. Does a good bit of damage to Draco Marino, but Kumbhakarna never under that much pressure. At least with no collapse from the rest of the Snake Pit here. The Snake Pit starting to drop some decent ward coverage down around this Gold Fury. Not quite the same long lane lead that we saw from the Papis in game number 1, where Warchi was already off to a 3-0 start here. It's just the 1 kill for Spudio, so largely even around this Gold Fury fight should one start to spring up here. The question is, when do these solo laners start to make their way over here? Maybe that's the the indicator that a Gold Fury fight is going to start to spring out. Finally, when the Xing Chen, this Jormungandr, are going to be able to disrupt the fight.
And Jormungandr and Xing Chen both opted into the teleport. I know I talked about last game, teleport maybe a bit on the way out, but both these solo laners realizing they're very susceptible to being poked out by each other, very susceptible to being maybe even solo killed by each other if they're not careful. So opting for a bit more of the safety in that relic. Blink coming out for Creed, and then the Thorns coming out for Terram on this Jormungandr. So a bit of a different choice of relics, going to show you just how they want to play these fights. Creed as a secondary form of engage with that Blink washing machine ultimate, whilst Terram a bit more dive into the backline with his ultimate, pop the Thorns to create even more space.
Still some damage from Spudio over onto Warchi. Draco Marino off to the side. Not sensed out just yet, but there is a ward that'll spot out this Kumbhakarna. Yeah, but the Sentry Ward paying off there. Always Sentry Ward your jungles, kids, and Spudio teaches you that message here, but the immediate blink right back through. That's going to find the Mez and the uppercut. It's going to connect onto Dazer here, so down goes the Gevin. My god, they are piling on. The Argus is going to lock him into place. Warchi snipes down onto Worst Turtle, who has to walk out of the back of the fight, and he's going to rotate for the first kill of this engagement. Draco Marino finally into the passive there as Terram will finish off the damage. 1-for-1 trade. Snake Pit continuing to walk forward with the Papis there. In on the punch as Angry is going to flicker his way out of the fight, doing his best to turn around some damage. But Creed is going to use the Whirlwind of Rage and Steel and forces the beads out of Angry out of the mid lane. World Serpent from Terram finds some knockups in the backline, but Spudio, he's still alive and full health, and he's got damage, but so does Creed, so does Angry, and suddenly the Papis getting swept from the map. It's Warchi against 3, Angry, no mana. Looks like this one is going to run away, even forces the actives on out, and Spudio turns around a couple of kills and a couple of assists in that engagement.
Marcus makes his way back to the fight and realizes there's no one there but the Snake Pit enemies. Has to just try and back his way out of that one. Draco Marino's also managed to respawn from his quick power nap and back up into the fight. But the fight's already over, and Snake Pit come away on top of that one. Certainly more kills, put themselves back into the game, find themselves with a slight gold lead from that, as well as the kill lead to the tune of 2, 6-4 reads the scoreboard.
Like the initial engagement there for the Papis felt pretty confident for them, but the Snake Pit sort of slowed things down, and really by the end of it, when Spudio was left untouched after all the other ultimates were used on Dazer in that front line, the fight just kind of got taken over by the backliners of Snake Pit. And they're better off for it for sure. They'll pull just the 1,000 gold lead, so as far as big sweeping team fights go, 4-2 as we've seen, but the gold lead absolutely not crippling 16 minutes into this game. Would have been a lot worse if the Snake Pit were healthy enough to rotate over to that Gold Fury, but wasn't the case this time around. Maybe the concern at this point is the kills kind of spread out over the Snake Pit this time, though equally spread maybe for the Papis. But you look at Angry, who's now got a couple of kills rolling, Spudio as well. Your carries are doing the damage if you're the Snake Pit, and that's a perfect spot to be in.
Yeah, and they're also staying alive during these fights, which is the big point. You have a look at the side of the Papis, the kills pretty much spread evenly on them.
Right.
One death on each one of them, apart from Warchi, who's unfortunately died twice, whilst the Snake Pit, it's just been Worst Turtle and Dazer that have been the focus in these fights, focus on their engagements. They're the ones that are dying first, and nothing else coming after that. Maybe a bit too much expended onto those targets to begin with.
Oh, the Papis snipe it away. It's Warchi from the back line that hit the final tick of damage. Gotta be aggravating there if you're the Snake Pit. You have yourself a lead and you're gonna extend that lead. But you always have to be cautious. when the Rom snipes are on the board, and now you get this renewed sense of aggression maybe from the Papis as everything else held even a small gold lead now for the Chaos side. And the Snake Pit feeling like they let one slip through their fingers.
Now, if I'm Snake Pit, I'm a bit angry at the fact that Warchi managed to steal that. I'm thinking, okay, right, going straight back onto the next objective. Let's go. We're not going to let that happen again. Make sure the wards are out. Kill this guy next time before we start the objective. And somebody please get those wards out. Just a bit more of a collective effort there to stop that, small window opportunity from happening again.
It's always tough when that one ends up coming through against your team, but the Snake Pit won't be too dissuaded by that one. Kind of a separation in mid lane builds after they both start Spear of Desolation early. Angry did end up rounding out into that Soul Gem. It's going to be a small engagement here onto Spudio, but the airstrike safe enough. So Marcus was hovering close by. But Chekio over onto that Doom Orb on the Hera. That's not one we've seen so far throughout the set all that much, Alpha Jackal. So Chekio, a little mobility and a whole lot of power off the top end.
Oh, a whole lot of power indeed. I think it's about 195 power or something crazy like that if it's fully stacked. But Daza does unfortunately miss the Cataclysm, and the rest of the members of the Papis managed to get away very easily from that rotation from the Snake Pit.
Yeah, man, so now we've got a Hera who's going to polymorph me. She's going to use her shield, and if she's got a stacked up Doom Orb, she's going to be faster than me. So I'm just not sure how I'm going to find my way into this backline at any point if I'm the Snake Pit. Unless you just jump in as Kali, maybe a World Serpent can set something up. It's going to be tough to lock down Chekio. Snake Pit do some decent damage. And the Tier 1 tower gets knocked down. So I do like this response, though. After the Gold Fury gets taken away, regroup and work down onto an objective.
Objectives looking pretty even, though. One tier 1 tower fell down from the side of the Snake Pit, and they respond in kind by taking down the exact same tier 1 tower of the Papis in that duo lane. No real breakaway leader in this game so far. In game 1, at this point, we sort of felt like the Snake Pit had it under complete control. At this point in game 2, the Papis had total domination over the rest of the map. So just a bit more even in this third game, and no sign of anybody breaking the deadlock just yet, but the Papis do find themselves with a slight gold lead and positional advantage over on the Fire Giant, giving them the slight edge so far.
Dazer gets mezzed and then rooted, but literally loses no HP. That is the bonus here of the Geb, as Hindu Man will tell us, the Geb man himself. Spudio has stayed alone over here in the long lane, so maybe a tier 2 tower getting taken down, but good communications, the immediate recall from the Jingwei. Less impactful for her when she has to go back to base. She can immediately rejoin the fight. So I like pushing that lane pressure over to the long lane. Might force the Papis out and elsewhere. So smart play there from Spudio and the rest of the Order side, keeping their ducks in a row.
Yeah, it also forces Warchi to go over here for a bit longer, just clear out 1, maybe 2 waves. And that could give the Snake Pit the opportunity to take a 5 versus 4 if they like to 2 on this mid lane or on the right-hand side. But instead, Spudio's going to do the exact same thing, reset this lane, push it back up to the tower, and force the exact same thing yet again. At some point, there has to be something to gain from the fact that the lane's pushed up and you're forcing somebody to back to defend. You have to take a 5 versus 4 in your favor, but they're just on position for it.
Well, maybe a tier in the mid lane. Slow rotation from Warchi around the backside. Angry, though. Oh, my God. Health bar evaporating under the eye of the Papis, but he stays alive thanks to the actives for a little bit longer. Creed will eventually get that kill. Terem on the re-engage thanks to the World Serpent. Won't hit that final knockup, but he's done a decent bit of damage. Snake Pit still moving themselves in. Half HP on 3 members of the Papis, and it's Terem on the back end with the knockup there, but the Papis able to disengage with a kill in their belt.
1 kill only so far in this engagement, but close to falling was Creed there at the very end. Some good peel and some good zone coming out from Marcus, as well as Warchi's damage means that he does escape underneath that tier 1 tower. And now with the fact that Angry is still on a 20-second cooldown, Gold Fury is respawning just any second now. In fact, there it drops on the map. If I'm Papis, I'm looking for this fight over here on this left-hand side. Take the 5 versus 4.
Might be the way to do it, with Angry still 5 seconds away from respawn, and Doesn't have either of his actives, so had to use literally everything there out of the mid lane. You know, Flicker obviously good at disengaging from the fights, but it kind of moves you from one spot to another, not too far away. So if team is hell-bent on knocking you down, a Flicker won't necessarily change that. So something to keep in mind if you're angry here. The Papis are going to start up this Fury here, maybe looking for the fight. Won't end up fully being completed, though. Marcus lurking around the backside, angry, no actives. Maybe what Marcus is looking for here, going to spot out a couple low-health targets around the side. Maybe just waiting for the rest of the Snake Pit to find an engagement on the front, distract themselves away from the back. Angry is fluttering somewhat close by there. But instead, maybe it's the Snake Pit that moved themselves forward. Dazer eats the Polymorph, takes some damage from the Hera, and look at this, Marcus. He maybe has finally bought himself enough time to wrap around the backside. Primal Fury reset once more. Snake Pit have to be wondering where this Nemesis is. And at this point, you've kind of checked every corner except the one, so still opting for the fight, though.
Yeah, a quick ward over on the left-hand side. They spotted out the Nemesis. They know exactly where Marcus is going to be coming from. But the fight looks like it's going to be engaged here shortly. Out comes the washing machine. The dude pulls in two. Jingwei dashes away very cleverly, but falling down first is Daisy.
Warg grabs the opening kill here in this engagement. Airstrike away from Spudio at 15 to 20% HP there. So the Papis find another solo kill. Worst Turtle looking for one onto Marcus, but didn't realize the rest of the Papis were there to play as well. The root down onto Terram, but underground, so no damage to follow up. It's been these one picks and then nothing for the Papis this time. 15 seconds left on Dazer. Not enough of an opening for the Papis to feel comfortable enough starting up the Fury.
I think if they managed to get a kill onto Worst Turtle or another kill onto Angry, then it would maybe have been more of an aggressive, let's go towards this Fury play. Instead, all of them backing to base has given the window to the Snake Pit instead. Chekio is around, and Chekio's going to drop Argus. And, well, Spudio eats half his health for his trouble.
Yeah, that's what you get for walking towards me, says Argus. Chekio is happy to do that amount of damage here. Still top damage in the game, though. Terram followed up by Spudio, so the Jingwei vital in keeping alive here. Primal Fury never pulled off by the Papis and now locked down. Dazer thrown back once more. Terram right on through with the World Serpent this time. It's going to find the knockup onto the Hera. As the Aegis is used there from a decent bit of damage, so the dive from the Snake Pit now a little bit more viable. Oh, nice mez. Terram was working his way towards a big engagement. Worst Turtle, 3-man stun, but goes into destruction here. Angry, pouring out the damage from the backline, locks down Marcus. The Snake Pit, they lose the Fury, but they win the back end of the fight.
Oh, and Warg tried to have something to say about that onto Dazer. Angry going aggressive, almost gets the kill onto Draco Marino and Warg at the same time with that Frostbolt.
It's so much.
But they're going to have to settle for the Tier 2 tower instead. So, a bit of a wash there. In fact, Snake Pit come out on top of that as they close the gold lead down to nothing from that engagement. Good kill onto the side of Marcus as well to boot. But also gives him an advantage over here on the right-hand side. Position goes the way of Snake Pit. Going to be looking at maybe the Pyromancer to begin with, rather than going for the big objective first.
Angry did so much damage in that last fight as well. It was Terram down to Spudio, and Angry was somewhere further down the damage chart. So hitting that pivot point now, the items online for Angry here at this point. Creed forced into his ultimate. It's only going to throw back onto one, but Ching Chin has to disengage. Fire Giant down to half HP. Dazer looking for an engagement onto Draco Marino. Won't find it though. Spudio and Angry free casting from the back, and that's plenty enough to melt down this Kumbhakarna. Watch out for the TP on the backline. It's Creed this time. Finds the root into the front, and that's going to set up for Argus to drop on down. Angry has to use both of his actives here. A stun down onto Marcus is going to slow down the engagement, but Chekio does so much as well, and Dazer will finally end up falling. Terram being looked at now by a few members of the Papis to punch right on through, and Chekio picks himself up a double.
First kill of the game for Chekio. In fact, he makes it the double, like you said. Marcus picks up the third kill of the engagement on Angry. And what was looking so good for the Snake Pit just turned to ruins thanks to a good TP to the backside from Creed after he started the engagement just that bit long ago. Into destruction goes Carly looking for the heal, unable to find it. As Worst Turtle does fall down to Draco Marino, but Spudio lives. Marcus falls down yet again, just unable to find the deicide, but they will find the kills that allow them to get that Tier 1 tower, get this Pyromancer, and probably even the Fire Giant.
Worst Turtle did some beefy damage there, didn't he? Even through the destruction, was just kind of whittling down the health bars of the Papis, but ended up not being able to find the reset. So the largest swing we've seen so far, Papis out ahead by 4,000 gold at this point. Death timers along for the Snake Pit. Terrorim is going to be able to rejoin the fight a little bit sooner. Worst Turtle 20 seconds behind, but so is Marcus as well. So it looks like that one lacking member of the Papis may be enough to slow this one down. I saw a couple fire pools spawning and wondered what was going on, but looks like the Snake Pit are going to have a chance to redefend on this FG.
I think it was also the fact that DayZ had just spawned as that fight ended as well, so didn't feel comfortable going into that 4 versus 2, especially with DayZ having his relics back up as well as his ultimate, meant that he could disrupt that fire giant extremely easily. Considering the health bars of the Papis as well, and the fact they had to go back to base, just not the opportune window.
Working our way in here. It's the Papis looking to engage. Draco Marino first in, finds the epic uppercut onto Spudio. Down, drops the Jing Wei. Both actives on cooldown, but the ultimate enough to disengage now from this fight. A large piece of defensive utility missing from Spudio, even offensive if you need to reposition yourself for some damage. So it maybe looks like the Papis have found exactly what they were looking for, though Whirlwind of Rage and Steel and Epic Uppercut both used in exchange.
Yeah, they also managed to get the World Serpent out from Terrorim defensively just to create that zone potential in case the World of Rage and Steel did go off and did connect successfully onto Spudio from Creed. So 2 for 2, I do give that advantage though to the Snake Pit because of the fact that the Papis have lost their engage potential with those ultimates being down. Granted, they have a load of CDR on their side, especially Draco Marino on that epic uppercut. 30% CDR already, thanks to the Relic Dagger and Pridwin, meaning it's already back up.
That's right, so Draco Marino, liberal with his usage there of the ultimate. Angry has had to double burn his actives every single time the Papis have found their way into the back. So he'll have both of them ready to go here. Oh my god, Draco Marino. Yeah, you found the Mez man, but you lost so much. Double stun from Dazer on the front line of this fight. Worst Turtle looking for Chekio around the back, but here's the peel from the rest of the team. Destruction around the corner. Epic uppercut for some peel, this time from Draco Marino. Worst Turtle, he's going to drop down, unsuccessful in finding the execute. But Warchi snipes down the damage from up in the sky, and the Papis have peeled and gotten themselves a kill.
And that's why it's very difficult to play and pick off one member of the Papis if you haven't started the fight to spread them out to begin with. Because they're always just going to zone back and peel for their one person that's getting killed very successfully. Worst Turtle a bit too eager on the trigger there when it was looking for Chekio. And one of the big proponents of the Kumbhakana is that banish onto an enemy target for 2 seconds. Just most of Kali's destruction completely wasted just being up in the sky, seeing the view around him.
And he's still got the blink, Worst Turtle, or Draco Marino, excuse me, does for this next engagement. Relic Dagger, you mentioned a few moments ago, is going to be very helpful in finding those consistent engagements now. Chekio around the side, finds the poly onto Dazer. The shielding's not going to be enough this time. Warchi free casting in the backline. Creed forces the beads out of both backliners of the Snake Pit. The Aegis from Warchi, enough to save his life from the ice, but not enough from the Snake, as Terrorim will pick up the kill there. Angry backpedaling back by his tier 2 tower. Creed attempting to blink on through. Argus now ringing down the damage as Chekio will find his third of the game. But Spudio rampaging his way through. No beads, no problem. Plenty of healing. The offensive repositioning from the airstrike here. No knock-up to be found, but Worst Turtle lurking around the side.
Oh, he's going to just try and do what he can, Chekio, to get as much damage off as possible, but Spudio claims his life. 6-0-4 for this Jing Wei. It has been messy, but so far it's been clean from Spudio. In fact, he's looked probably the best player in this game by some distance, I would say. He's not dying, very safe so far. Good with his relic usage, but so far the Fire Giant has been started up by the members of the Snake Pit. Papis still reeling from that loss in the fight. Only Creed and Draco Marino around to defend it. Fire Giant down to 6,000 health. Draco Marino just can't get his way into this at the right time.
Draco Marino looking for the steal, but he won't be given the chance. Creed swirls around in the Snake Pit, lock down the Fire Giant and the kill onto Draco Marino. Creed ends up falling as well. Worst Turtle, he's reached that pivot point. 2-4-6, doesn't matter. He was 0-4-6 heading into that small double kill, and now the Snake Pit. Look at those death timers, Alpha Jackal. 50 seconds at their longest. Map for the
That's a
taking at the
Phoenix.
moment for the Snake Pit.
That's a Phoenix at worst if you are members of the Snake Pit, because you should be able to get at least another tier 2 tower and another Phoenix. Hell, you maybe even feel confident enough to go for the end if you get a good fight off here in the 3 versus 5. But this Phoenix shouldn't really be defended here by the Papis. They need to wait for Drake and Marino to respawn in 10 seconds. The Phoenix goes down very quickly. They'll get this mid-tier 2 for free, but after that, you can see Papis putting up maybe a slight bit of defense.
Tier 2 tower goes down. Still 10 seconds on Creed, so that's the one you have to keep your eyes on as far as defense goes. In the mid lane, Phoenix is going to be safe now for the moment. Primal Fury is going to get looked at now by the Snake Pit. Maybe their first Fury of the game is going to get locked away. It was kind of that you got to rewind the clock back to that Fire Giant, and it looked like the Papis had something they would be happy with, but once Spudio burned those beads, there was no re-engage, really, I guess, from the Papis to get rid of that Jing Wei. Always defensive and always has the potential to turn the fights around, especially now in the late game. 6-0-6 for Spudio. Top damage in the game so far as well. There's so many targets you have to worry about burning down if you're the Papis. It's got to be difficult to prioritize. All right, we got Worst Turtle jumping on us. We got Angry pouring out damage, and there's Spudio sending damage our way as well. We've already burned his beads. I'm not sure what else we can do.
It's going to be even worse now for the Papis to deal with Spudio, considering they only have one form of anti-heal online and that Toxic Blade coming out from Marcus. And Spudio's identified that perfectly and decided, right, I'm going to change out my boots for an Assy as my final item. Even more lifesteal, especially when he hits that low HP threshold, just to keep himself alive a bit longer, as well as extra penetration and some attack speed to boot. It's a perfect pickup here for Spudio, just to make himself even more impactful and even more of a juggernaut.
And remember, the Papis chose this. They said, we just beat this in Game 2. Let's try it ourselves and see if we can maybe win with it. The Snake Pit now knocking on the door of moving on to the semifinals. The Papis absolutely have that chance to turn this one around. We've seen games stuffed at the Phoenix line. But it's going to be difficult to lock down Worst Turtle and the rest of the essential targets there for the Snake Pit. Right side Phoenix being looked at now. Dazer takes some good damage from Chekio. A little bit of a mez onto Terrorim, but not the ideal target in that Jormungandr. The wave clear enough to keep the Snake Pit at bay at the moment. Pull back in from Angry. Some good damage on the left-hand side. Dazer's taken half of his HP. Whirlwind of Rage and Steel immediately answered back with a couple ultimates now, but the Snake Pit pressing down on the gas. The right side Phoenix is going to melt away here shortly. And it looks like the World Serpent was just to buy some space.
So 1 ultimate for 3 for iCreed. Good win for him, but unfortunately one of them was that World Serpent from Terrorim. Just dives into the backline, creates havoc on the side of the Papis. Just forced a bit too far back from that Phoenix, and it was their engagement that meant that they lost that Phoenix. But now they have the opportunity to defend here on the mid lane. This, if it falls down here, could spell the end of the game here for the Papis and their end of challenging Belt Slap in that semi-final.
There are fire minions on the Titan now. One member of the Papis has to back off. Here we go as Terrorim will walk his way forward, find the double knock-up, but no defense really put forth there by the Papis. 3 Phoenixes down. And that's going to be the cue for Snake Pit to chill out, spend some gold, and let's just regroup around this Fire Giant and walk our way in.
They got it at the perfect time as well. If you notice, Fire Giant Belt no longer around them, but it went down 11 seconds, 12 seconds ago. Thanks to that
is
handy Fire Giant
maximizing
counter
that
at
buff,
top
huh?
left. Exactly, they played it perfect. They planned it out ever so perfectly. They went, right, we're gonna wait till 10 seconds left on the Fire Giant buff before we go in on this one, so it's, you know, it's clean, it's efficient. We don't waste it, we don't burn it all to begin with and then have 3 minutes doing nothing with it.
Yeah, I don't want to go back to base and spend gold while I still have 10 seconds on my Fire Giant buff. I mean, what is that? I'm getting every little bit of value out of it. I guess this time they're gonna have a chance now at the Enhanced Fire Giant. Maybe once more for the Snake Pit. The Papis are gonna, I mean, they have to move out, you'd expect here at this point. I mean, it's gonna be so difficult to defend anyway, much less with Enhanced Fire Giant for the Snake Pit with 2 Phoenixes down. The Papis walk their way forward. Enhanced Fire Giant started up this time. Dazer around the side, maybe not for full-on engage, but to peel off some counter-engage. Draco Marino blinks his way forward, finds the mez onto 1, but Spudio happy to walk away from that one. Beads on the Jingwei, 10 seconds away from being up, so Spudio, a couple of awkward side steps for the next few seconds are going to keep him alive. And the Papis are going to back off.
I like what Worst Turtle's done as well. He's pushed Firewaves up through that mid lane into the Titan room, just to give perhaps a bit more of a difficult decision. The decision for them is to fight. The decision for them might be to lose Marcus right away.
Oh, Marcus! He's getting taken down to half HP here. Terror him into the World Serpent, snipes down from Warchi. The peel, it's good enough here from the Papis to maybe re-engage. The Titan being looked at by the Fire Minions. A couple members of the Papis have to go back, but that's not going to stop Warchi from getting the kill here. Worst Turtle, he's on the Titan! Oh, he's unable to finish it off, but the Fire Minions are going to walk their way in. Spudio has a double kill. I think Worst Turtle did just enough there. Marcus has to walk back and try to help things out, but the Papis not able to defend. Snake Pit just need to walk their way in, breathe on this Titan, and they've got a date with Belt Slap immediately on the other end. Well played to Snake Pit. They stare down the composition that lost them game 2, and they beat it in game 3. What an ending there. Sometimes you don't even need the Kali in the fight. She's just going to kill your Titan.
Yeah, I was just had a look on the minimap afterwards, like, hang on, where's the Kali? Why is the Titan dying so quickly? Oh, it's because Marcus is standing on top of the Kali, and is standing on top of Worst Turtle just taking down the Titan. It's a brilliant play. We noticed that it was pushing 5 minutes in. I thought it was just to create some pressure, but the pressure is, your Titan's going to die if you don't back, so do something about it immediately.
That's right, and it was a great collapse there. I love kind of the mind games being played there by the Snake Pit, realizing, all right, they have two options. Either they walk forward and try to contest this Fire Giant and we kill them then, or they don't and we take it and we end up sieging their base. It was some kind of mismatch of both of them. But it is the Snake Pit over the Papis that take this one in 3 games. The Papis still a chance to bounce back against the Picari Noobs too, of course, in the lower bracket. But Belt Slap versus the Snake Pit, that'll be one of the games we show you guys tomorrow. That's it for the European portion of our day. We're going to send it to a quick break, and when we come back, we'll break down this one.
We brought the sound that shook the ground. There is a meaning buried within the sound. We brought the sound that shook the ground. There is a meaning. We brought the sound.
Welcome back, everybody. Sorry about that. The Snake Pit are able to find the victory here, 2-1 over the Papis in what was much closer than what we saw in the earlier European set. Though, Mifflin, that's kind of what we expected. The second and third seeds have been battling it out, pretty hard fought all year long. Today, Snake Pit gets the edge, and Kali wins again, undefeated in the European side.
Look, Kali won, but it wasn't 100% up to that Kali. Worst Turtle had a very hard time coming online. This game, again, was Spudio diff. This dude controlled his lane. He controlled the team fights. If memory isn't mistaken, I think 9-0 was the slash line at the end of the game. I think the hottest play we saw come from the Kali is that kind of break-ditch attempt at backdooring the Titan that did just enough damage to set up for the team. But even then, Worst Turtle died for it, and even then, Snake Pit kind of wiped the entirety of the Papis anyway. So was it really even that valuable? I'm not sure.
Yeah, it feels like whatever team Kali is on, that Hunter seems to absolutely pop off. Because in Game 2, it was Warchi who dominates on the Hachiman whenever Marcus is piloting the Kali. Game 3, Spudio has a fantastic game. Top of the player damage, Undying, just dominated this duo lane. And this Rom did not look particularly impressive today. For as good as Kali's win rate was, feels like Rom was kind of on the other end of the spectrum. He really struggled in this set.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, when we're watching these SEC games as the weekend goes on, we can accurately say that the closer a draft looks to being an SPL draft, the more likely it is to just straight up lose. I think that these teams have very well established that they've got their own meta now, and they're going to play it much better than they would trying to emulate something that you would see at a higher level of play. And you're absolutely right. Kali in the jungle might not matter. It's just going to be that stimulus package for your own Hunter. Give them the need to pop off, because that seems like how it's going to go down, especially when Spudio's on your team. I also want to give a quick shout out to Angry as well. He absolutely dominated on the Merlin pick, 30,000 damage coming through, but it was a little bit more sleeper because his KD didn't reflect it as well.
Yeah, kind of gets robbed of some praise because Spudio has such a great game, but hopefully Angry can reprise that sort of matchup tomorrow up against Belt Slap as Snake Pit moves on to the top end of the semifinals. Picari Noobs 2 up against the Papis will be the losers round tomorrow. Picari Noobs and the Papis both getting the loss, but Papis definitely looking a little bit more competitive, though I do think that's mostly because of the fact that they weren't going up against Belt Slap, who's been super dominant in that region. That concludes Europe for us today, though again, tomorrow we'll go back to it. And that brings us to North America. Basket of the Boys up against Froggy will be the first one in just a little bit. So far, Mifflin, North America has looked like a region very similar to Europe. One team up top, instead of Belt Slap, it's Basket of the Boys, with everyone else trying to catch them.
I mean, that's been the story of this SEC since day one. I mean, you got a team as star-spangled as Baskin and the Boys, players like Meerkat, the titular Baskin, Haddix at points. They all look incredibly strong on this draft. They work well together. And individually, I would say that every single role is best in class for the SEC. Baskin in mid, Meerkat in Hunter role, Mask in the jungle. It might as well just be an SPL team. These guys are absolutely dominant. I think they've earned their spot at the top.
But it's going to be Froggy trying to take them down, the number one SOC team. We'll see if they can do that in just a little bit, or at least maybe look a little bit more competitive than Picari Noobs 2 did up against Belt Slap on their European counterparts. Baskin and the Boys looking to re-hold that title. They didn't win every playoff event this year, remember. It was Locked and Goated that ended up winning just a little bit ago. So Baskin and the Boys might be a little bit hungrier this time around, want to get that title entirely under their control once again.
Look, if Basket of the Boys weren't hungry in the past, I'm scared of a Basket of the Boys that actually want to show up and win on the day of. Because, you know, they've got that same energy around them that you would associate with teams like SSG, that they've kind of been coasting at the top. They've been riding up there for so long. They're becoming a little bit more lax as time goes on. I think SSG and Basket of the Boys are both teams that benefit greatly from losing, just because it reminds them, oh, okay, we're not the absolute best to ever touch the game. Maybe let's pay attention in scrims for a day. Maybe we'll do a little bit of homework for the set that's coming up this weekend. And when they come prepared and when they come hungry, as you put it, they come ready.
The other part of NA that I think is going to be interesting is that it's pretty wide open, because that Locked and Goated team that was really the competition for this Basket of the Boys squad, Stewart, Pagon, Ionic, those types of guys, they aren't in this tournament. They didn't qualify for the playoffs. Your number 2 seed is Hype Unit, which is Benny Q, Quig, Nehu, Layers, and Cascade. That is not that same name power as a team like Locked and Goated were. So it should be pretty interesting to see what happens in North America. So stay tuned. We'll be right back with the NA side of the SEC playoffs.